places. Latifa! Hello. I'll be right back. This live stream about to go crazy. Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Sorry, I had to go use the restroom. But we are watching the PSP Homebrew Developer Conference stream. We finally made it to Saturday. Been so excited to watch this conference go down. And they're gonna have the pre-conference here soon, starting in 5 minutes. So they're gonna have everything set up and gonna have a lot of fun with this. So for all of you who are sticking around to watch, thank you so much for being here. And I will copy my URL to the Facebook group to let the other people know. If there's any issues with audio, please let me know. Get things set up here real quick. Wonder if that went through. No, it didn't. Delete the page. Trying to copy the live stream URL to send it to the Facebook group. And I'm just gonna go to my channel and just go from there because it's not working for some reason. Let me copy that. I hope everyone is in good health. Everyone's doing good. I apologize if my microphone is a little too loud. I'll lower the gain on that because it does get kind of annoying. It picks up everything. Here's the group. And there we go. So we are now in I wanted to expand this screen to full, but I don't see that option. If you guys have any questions or need some help on something, let me know. time playing some Call of Duty. That was fun. And so we got 32 people waiting for the conference here. We got the same folks commenting. So it says 3 minutes to pre-stream. Mute my microphone here for a second. So we got 32 people waiting for it. Yeah, I'm excited what they're going to talk about and all the different things they're going to be releasing the next couple years or so. Yeah, this is great. We're going to hopefully we get a lot of improvements on stability on some of these emulators, like the one that I'm very Alex DCX, what are you expecting from this conference? I'm expecting just a revival of the whole PSP homebrew scene. We don't really see a lot of updates with most of this stuff out there. You know, there's a few, like the Daedalus emulator, the N64 emulator that was released back in December. That was pretty good. That was enlightening to see. But yeah, the N64 is one. I don't know if you guys got that joke of what I just said, but that was a terrible joke. Anyways, I'm expecting to see some new emulators, possibly improvements on emulators for sure. There's still a lot of work to do there because we're, this stuff is not 100% and still needs a little tweaking here and there. So hopefully we'll get more updates to the N64 emulator, especially that one. I feel like they should really crack down on that emulator because it's so much work to be done, so many different things to test. And there we go. Here is our pre. Oh boy. Yeah. Oh, I'll be right back, guys. Give me 1 second. The SNES PSP has perfect controller for it. Yes, it does. It's perfect. It's the right button configurations. Yeah, I would love to see improvements on all the emulators. I want to see a better interface. I saw someone commenting on Reddit that some of these emulators are a little bit confusing when loading a ROM, and their kids were having a hard time trying to load games, and he was trying to find something that would just, like the Adrenaline Bubble creator on the PS Vita. That would be cool if we could do that also on the PSP. There has to be a way to do that, to execute a game, with the thumbnail already under the game card. That would be nice. That would be nice little utility to have, and possibly a way to convert. Possibly convert movies too. Oh yeah, and the Nazi Zombies Portables is, the NZP hype. I'm excited about that too. I'm gonna refresh this page. I really don't. Nazi Zombies Portable. That's such a great game. But when I try to stream it or connect it through Remote Joy Lite, it always has issues. I can't really run it at full frames. Even if I took it off the USB connection and just played it, it still kind of runs sluggish when you get like so many zombies in the same room. But yeah, they should also. I'm looking forward to seeing maybe an improvement on Remote Joy Lite, and have that improved as well, because the connections, it works, but there are a few bugs. Like I have to every time I use a USB connection, I have to restart my PSP and reconnect it and get Remote Joy Lite working. Better way to stream it on your PC would be nice. Yeah, I dropped down to like 19 viewers, now to 42 watching now. And we are up with 15 viewers, thank you guys. And I wanted to add a couple alert boxes here for anyone who wants to. Yeah, let's add that here. Let's add our comment section. The chat box, I always have a hard time trying to set this up in my stream because of, I don't know why. It just doesn't like. And I would like to do the full screen here. Hey, what's up, Adam? Welcome to the stream. Let's add a couple more. Get a viewer count here. That looks good. Thank you everyone for joining the stream. It's a lot of fun. So Beers says, yeah, the FPS dropped significantly. I'll sometimes hit 10. I hit 5 one time. I'm like, what am I doing playing this game? Alex says, what battery do you recommend for the PSP 2000? Well, it's always good to have the original battery. Man, this stream is not looking so hot here. Let's pop out this chat and just get rid of it. But yeah, the battery recommend, you just have to go on like Amazon and check out the reviews. That's what I do. Anything above 4 stars should be fine when it comes to buying a replacement battery. You're not going to find OEM batteries because they already stopped manufacturing those a long time ago, so you won't find any brand new original Sony PSP batteries. And you're probably better off just getting the aftermarket. You might see a little bit of improvement. So Adam says, how are you? I love your videos. Thank you. I'm doing great. I was feeling kind of sick on Monday. And then Tuesday I was feeling a little better, but still crappy. And Thursday came around and I felt great, so I'm doing just fine. My daughter is sick though. She just has some weird flu, but it's not the virus. Then she just got a rash all over her body, but she's doing just fine. Hey Nicholas, hello, and Naji Tech Pro, hi. So it looks like this stream is gonna be a little late, but it's fine. If you guys have any questions, we can always just answer them as we go. Let the stream begin. Yeah, the DS on PSP. The DS on the PSP would be great. the PSP is actually a lot more powerful than the Nintendo. I think the original Nintendo, or possibly the Nintendo, has a higher CPU. I'm not sure. Let's see. Specs. Wouldn't that be nice to have a DS emulator for the PSP? Decimate just doesn't work great. That's a HPAA violation. So the Nintendo DS versus Sony PSP. There's not really good pages out there to really talk about this. But yeah, Adam says, I love the PSPs you have in your videos. The colors look great. I've been watching your videos for about a month now. Thanks. I really appreciate you guys watching and enjoying my content. Some of my commentary is kind of bad. I look back and I'm like, why did I say that? It's so weird. But yeah, I'm really digging the different colors of the PSP. I'm so excited. I still have a few more, and I wanted to talk about that in another video with the different variations of the PSP 1000. I'm a big fan of the original, although the 3000 is a little bit more powerful. Not too much, but it has better performance out of the three. And yeah, just a few more colors to grab, and the PSP 1000 collection is going to be complete soon. Bira says, which do you like more overall, Vita or PSP? I really love the Vita. That thing is so powerful. I love it so much. The dual analogs, the touchscreen, the big old OLED LCD display, OLED screen on the PS Vita 1000. And the PSP, it's great, but once you're like on the Vita and you go back to the PSP, it's like such a downgrade. It's like, what happened? But I love them both to death, and I'm gonna have to give it to the Vita because you can have the whole interface of the PSP with Adrenaline, no problem, and it's just more powerful, and the touchscreen is just better. And I'm glad I got one for so cheap from Japan. That was a great purchase, brand new. And thanks, love your channel too. Much needed love shown to Sony handhelds on your channel. Yeah, I've always loved the PSP ever since I saw it in the magazine for the very first time. And there was a rumor, it's like, oh, there's gonna be a handheld from Sony. And me and my brother were always into the handhelds because that's what we could only afford. And we were playing a lot of like Pokemon Gold, Pokemon Silver, you know, the Game Boy Color, the Game Boy Advance, Game Boy SP. And when the PSP was announced, we were like, wow, this thing could play movies, play music, go on the internet. This thing is a beast. And I think it was ahead of its time, way ahead of its time when the PSP was released. That thing was just so powerful. And it just amazes me still that a lot of people use it. And it's one of the best consoles to have in your collection. And yeah, Rigu N says, PSPs are awesome. I just refurbished mine a few days ago from black to blue. Nice. Is it a 1000 or 2000? There is a metallic blue PSP 1000. It's so beautiful, and it's an original color, original housing from Japan. That's extremely hard to get. While we're waiting for this stream to go down, let's check out some PSP consoles on eBay, shall we? Let me get out of here. Whoops. Get that off my damn screen. Alright, let me go into my search results. Perfect. Let's see. New PSP 1000. I like to shop on eBay because it's the best place to buy the really good quality PSPs in great condition. It says, I have a PSP E1000 jailbroken. Your videos help me jailbreak my PSP. Nice. I'm still looking for an E1000. I can't find one. They're pretty rare to find brand new in the box. Dark Flame, thank you for stopping by. I can't play with you. I jailbroke mine. Okay. Diaz says, anyone here have a Vita and Freedom Wars? I think I have that game, but I haven't played it yet. The stream is pretty slow, guys. What happened? What happened? This might not go down, who knows. Here's a brand new 1000 ceramic white. That's so nice. Coming out of the US. Wow. It's my dream to get a brand new one. I've been buying used so far. Yeah, while we wait for the stream to go up, it should be here in a couple minutes. Hopefully they'll fix the connection and we'll be good to go. And now we have one of the rarest, and that is the Champagne Gold PSP, brand new in the box. Look at that. That's the PSP 1000. So with the PSP 1000 there was white from Japan, black all over the world, metallic blue, silver, let's see, pink, camouflage color, champagne gold, and there was another exclusive one, but that's more of like a bundle. It's the same black on black, but for the most part there's only black, white, silver, metallic blue, gold, and silver. So 6 colors to the PSP 1000 if you're into those. Oh, he took it out the box. Why would you do that? Oh, it's an open box. Open box, still in very great condition. Beautiful ring on the back. But out of all the PSP consoles, the PSP 1000 is the best for me. Your stream is delayed for me. Do you have all PSP models? Yes, I do. I'm just missing the E1000. That's... well, technically I don't. I don't have them all. Oh, come on. 84 people and still no stream? Come on, guys. Get your shit together. And there's the beautiful pink. Beautiful pink one from Japan, straight from Japan. 500 bucks. Here's the rare Gigapack. Open box though. You'll not find a brand new one. Geez, $800 makes me wish I still had my old one. Yeah, some of these are pretty crazy expensive. You see how there's not many under new? And half of them are pre-owned. You won't find one brand new. Here's the PSP Gigapack. I'd like to cover this on another video, but the Gigapack is one of the rarest PSP value packs out there, and there were limited. There's this one here from Japan, pre-owned. It has everything. The stand, one of the stands, or one of the rarest items of the PSP is that stand from the Gigapack, because they only made so many of those packs and you got the stand with it. It's like this nice clear stand. Still nothing. Let's check it out. There's the stand. I want the stand. I'm like obsessed with the stand. No, that's not the stand. But you could see it right there. Kind of cool. So let's see. Stream started by refreshing up on my end. All right, let's take a look.
Furthermore, Slender for PSP was recently finished, and soon Desmume will begin work on top of the complete initial port of the latest version of the emulator. Isn't that incredible? This year marks the 16th anniversary since the PSP's Japanese release, and the scene is nothing short of
Wow, we're gonna get a new DS emulator.
I know I run the risk of monologuing here, so I'll finish on this note. While we hope everything goes smoothly, please understand that this is a huge event with a lot of logistics and people involved. So show some respect for everyone who has taken time out of their lives to work on the PSP and create presentations for all of you. Thank you again to everyone who is here this evening. Here's to the PSP!
Yeah,
Right.
PSP!
Without further ado, our first presentation tonight is Nazi Zombies Portable by Moto
Nice! Thank you.
Legacy.
Awesome sauce. Yeah. Let me start up the.
I'll actually just pull together the whole list.
Alright guys, let's enjoy this nice conference and have a good
By the
time.
way, Moto, you have your open FNAF presentation as well, don't you?
Oh, of course. No, I don't. And just a quick reason as to why that was cut.
Okay.
It's a very ambitious project, and a lot of time has gone into
Thanks,
it.
Burris, for letting us
Sadly,
know.
I couldn't finish the
Letting me
rendering
know.
time, so I could just have this like 10-minute presentation about its back end and have absolutely nothing to show you. That's not fun.
Okay, fair enough. So, Nazi Zombies Portable then?
Yeah, I'm Moto Legacy, and I'm going to talk about Nazi Zombies Portable.
Reboot.
So what is NZP? Nazi Zombies Portable is a Quake project, which began in September of 2009 and was the victor of the 2011 PSP Genesis competition. It's a faithful remake of World at War's Nazi Zombie game mode, with elements of the mode's edition, Black Ops Zombies. Here we have the Nazi Zombies Portable timeline, where we can see 2009, the development of the project began. And
Hey, Mr. Chief, for
2011
any hidden
came the
gems,
release
I
of
wouldn't know
Beta
at this
1.1,
time.
which was the peak of the project. This is where you'd have thousands of members every day making cool maps, talking on the forums, and just having a great time.
Yeah.
But sadly, in 2012, the Beta 1.2 was leaked, which caused the first death or loss of motivation of the project. So from 2012 all the way to late 2014, the project was dead, up until the demo release in 2014. This was advertised as NZP is back, we're gonna crank out a very polished release, and polished the demo was. Lots of cool model refreshes, new sounds, new graphics, all of that. But sadly, nothing really came past the demo. So in early 2015, unofficial patches were being developed by Naivo and Paracoyo XD. This went on until the beginning of 2017, when the original devs came back and they sort of took us all in and said, hey, let's redo NZP again, and this time we'll make it cross-platform, and lots of other cool stuff. And then we have 2020 where it's, like today. So Dawn of the Return of the Dead again. The reboot strives to be a much cleaner version of the demo, made easy to port to other Quake platforms, including the Nintendo Switch. Reboot will finally mark the official one put on release of NZP after 11 years. So what's new? We have 2 new perks, which complete the full set from World at War to Black Ops. We have Deadshot Daiquiri, which completely removes the gun recoil and decreases weapon spread by 35%. And we have Mule Kick, which allows the player to hold 3 weapons at one time.
Nice.
We also have dual wielding for certain weapons. So they're akimbo, you can have one in left and one in right. The left picture here, we show the Mustang and Soundly, which is the Pekka punched variant of the Colt M1911. On the right, we have the Snuff Box, which is actually a weapon that was found in the World at War files, but was never added. It's the Pack-a-Punch version of the Sawed-Off Shotgun.
Nice. That's
We
cool.
also have some new features for map makers. This is only a select few. Easter egg song support, and the ability to have multiple teleporter modes. That's all I showed for this presentation, but there's still, I did it again, there's still a lot more to come. So, one is to come. New maps. A 1.2 version of Warehouse, Verrucht, and an unreleased Keener de Toten that was actually given to us by Justice, the guy who did
Yes,
the
Kino,
demo.
guys,
So
Kino.
this is the one that was actually shown on ModDB back in 2013. So regarding performance is still not where we'd like it to be, but we have made efforts to fix that up. Lots of improvements to the server side, the Quick C, implementation of the VFPU usage, which is a coprocessor made by the implementation is made by Styx. Random miscellaneous 4 kilobyte memory saves, thanks to Daima, who I don't think is here right now. And then in general, just map optimization. And there have been efforts to mitigate certain crashes, but we are aware those crashes exist. So we're still not as polished as we could be, but we're trying.
Yeah.
So what about a
that's
Vita
good.
port? A Vita port of NCP was in the works, but due to the lack of finalized releases for PSP and PC, it's on hold. But once finished, we should have a smooth 60 FPS based on the testing I did. It was in development. There was
Buttery smooth, he says. On the Vita? Oh,
so
baby.
here's our roadmap. By summer of 2020, we hope to have 1.0 done for PC, PSP, and Switch, which has
Nice.
all the perks, all the weapons from Nut War, Hellhounds, select few map. And then in fall, the 1.0 version for PS Vita should be released, which will be complete port of Reboot 1.0. You know, hopefully nothing's gone from that. And then a maybe 1.1 would come in winter, which will have Verot. And I did it again. Maybe more. Depends on the ideas that the team has and motivation. Subject to change because there's school and then lots of other things going on right now. So download links and more information. Just some engine information. The PSP is using DQuake, PC is using FTE QuickWorld, and the Switch is using QuickSpasm. The reboot can be found on GitHub, and there's the link for the NCT Discord. Although the PSP homebrew server is good too if you want to check that out. I'll take any questions anyone has.
Great.
This is sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
When to coming?
Never.
Fuck. How about the MP5?
I don't want to talk about additional weapons at this time, if that's alright. There is something in the works that I have been showing off here and there, but it's not ready to be public yet.
What about George? Is George coming?
Meatbox, you're a great friend. Is there any questions on the YouTube or the Discord channel? Or is that it for me?
Well, I just wanted to say that earlier were you not telling me that you had given the program a bit more memory and now some more maps?
I have. I forgot to add that to the presentation, but I can talk about that a little. Utilizing the PSP kernel mode, which is something that will be talked in a presentation here shortly. We're able to use a lot more memory, and issues with bigger maps like Keynote or Toten now work perfectly fine on the the PSP FAT.
Here's a question from the live stream chat. Ben Clegg asks, how hard is it to work with 3 Quake source ports simultaneously?
Lots of so for FTE specifically, we use CSQC.
So we're gonna have a new
So
update
a lot
to
of the client
Nazi
stuff, like the
Zombies
menu
Portable
stuff is handled
Summer
by that engine.
2020, guys.
But to better answer your question, IFDEFs and FTEQC are our best friend. Whenever there's something we need to do differently per platform in QC, we can just write it down
Excuse me.
real fast and
Sorry about that.
handle all of that. Seamless.
I have an actual question about the differences between the versions. Will the max zombie count on the map remain the same for every single version, or will it be different scaling?
Hopefully we'll
That's a
see
good question.
scaling.
Right now, on PSP, the limit is 12, which is half of the standard limit. Every other platform, the max zombie count is 24 at a time.
Okay, so limit 12.
Another question. Rob asks, what pathfinding algorithm does NZP use?
Right now, we have experimented with NavMesh, but NavMesh would be a PC exclusive thing, and if I recall correctly, we use an algorithm very similar to A-Star to help with waypointing.
Right, we have another question from Profi G-Man Workaround, and that is, do you use Linux?
I do. Right now I'm using Ubuntu with GNOME. GNOME.
There's a question in the conference chat here. How was the beta leaked in 2011?
So, from what I understand, I wasn't part of the community at the time, but if you were to donate to the team, you would get early access to builds via a Dropbox, and someone donated, had the Dropbox, and just made the whole thing public.
Right. Question from Connor JBW from YouTube. Will there be any mapping tools released? And if so, when?
So regarding mapping, we use the same map format as Half-Life and Counter-Strike 1.6. So you can use map editors like Hammer or Trench Broom. We do offer.
I'm going to answer some questions here that I didn't get to. Dark Flame asks, are all PSP a lot of money? Not all of them. You just got to find the best, I guess the best place to find them is, your local stores or your local like selling like Mercari, Facebook Marketplace, things like that. And Adam asks, are all your PSPs jailbroken? Yes, they are.
Unless someone broke something.
So right now they're just asking questions, and I'm hoping that they move on here pretty soon.
Infrastructure, multiplayer would be a thing.
For the PSP, it's unlikely due to the system not supporting modern security standards for Wi-Fi. But other platforms like Vita, Switch, and PC most definitely.
Can't believe they're coming out with the NZP specific for PS Vita.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Stoked
What
for
are the
that.
possibility of friendly bots being added in the future?
Most likely no, just because AI can be really, really taxing on the systems.
Yeah, I agree.
There's a lot that would have to go into it. The bots would have to learn how to buy weapons, when to stay away from the player.
Yeah, we don't need AI.
Repairing windows.
We don't need
there's a lot
bots.
that goes into it, and I don't think we would be able to do that.
Yeah, no.
Right. Question from RMX in YouTube. Actually, serious question. Other than getting more World of War maps, I think it means World of War at least. Is it possible to see maps that appear in later games?
That'd be cool. Add some more
It's
maps.
definitely possible. The main thing that's been pushing us back is thinking about, do we really want to add support for or add features to the game that would only be used for this specific map? It's something that I'd have to talk to a lot of map makers about. Would they benefit from this as well? If so, most likely, yeah, we would strive to add maps from probably through the Black Ops series.
There are a few questions in the conference channel. If there's nothing else from YouTube.
Currently not.
Okay, so one here from Gelber is, how is performance evolving from release to release?
It's certainly been improving. Writing code for the game and adding things like perks, I would thought that it'd be like detrimental and performance would decrease, but it's remained mostly the same with feature updates, and I'm constantly pushing out commits to the GitHub to increase PSP performance.
There are a few others now. Just give me 2 seconds to double check.
Take your time.
Is there
Will-
currently controller support on PC?
There definitely will be. I am working on that currently.
Do you know of any
Here's one other
PSP
one from,
2000 show
Wilzer.
replacement guides?
Will PSP and Switch players be able to play together?
Most likely not, due to what I described before with network security.
Oh,
If there was ever a way to get WPA2 ASK working on PSP, it's something I would investigate and experiment with for sure.
What about ad hoc?
Ad hoc was answered, I think.
Yeah, we
between
discussed
PSP and Switch.
ad hoc. I believe that's PSP specific. Ad hoc.
As far as
More
guides
maps.
go,
Yeah.
you would have to
Yeah, the
just.
Switch's host say local.
I really don't
network-based
know anyone
page, like
out
a
there
hotspot,
that has a good
for
guide.
other
Possibly I
Switches to
could
join.
make one for you later
believe.
on,
It's equivalent to a LAN party.
That's on my to-do list.
There
Basically.
you go.
Yeah. So sorry, I'll just take one or two other questions, then we should probably move on.
Yeah,
So,
they're taking too long with
This
questions
guy,
here.
Tag365, has asked 2 questions. First one is, how is the act of adding perks so taxing on the system? And how do you work within the limitations of the PSP? In other words, I think he wants you to explain what the main limits are.
So limitations for sure are things like controls. Something that happened in demo and we've stuck with since is playing Southpaw. Not having a second analog stick means we have to prioritize accurate movement from accurate aiming. So you do aim with the analog stick and move with the face buttons, which, like I said, not a lot of people like. In terms of performance, it can be very, very difficult to get larger maps working on the system. But in terms of packing features into one map, it honestly really isn't too hard. It's just a matter of logistically balancing so the map plays well.
Okay. There's probably 1 or 2 other questions. Okay, let's take this as the last one. Are these made with the PSP in mind, so the 1000 included? Or is this designed for Sorry, actually, what is the question here? Are these made with the PSP in mind for that included, or also PPSSPP from most platforms? So yeah, I guess which is this game designed for primarily?
The PSP builds are PSP. I do very limited testing on PPSSPP. I mainly test using a fat model with the limited RAM.
Thank
in
you.
mind.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a great question.
So, I think that's plenty of questions. I'm sorry if I missed any there, but I
Wow,
think
so
we've
he
had
does
plenty, and we should
test
probably just
NZP
move
on...
for the sake of keeping the conference flowing a bit.
Yeah, I just want to say, if you have any more,
He tests the NCP on the original PSP 1000 to max it out. That's great.
So the next presentation is Slender PSP by Iridescence.
Here we go. Next game, guys.
Correct.
Yes, correct. I was looking at the schedule myself.
Hey, thanks,
Just
Dustin. We
quickly,
really
if
appreciate that.
anyone
And Big
from
Mac,
YouTube
too.
wants
It's
the link to the
beautiful
Discord,
community
I'll just
we have
post it
here at
there
the
if you
PSP
ask,
homebrew
so,
scene.
well, be sure to ask.
So happy to see it grow.
Yeah, that's not a problem. Thanks for mentioning that. So I think Iridescence will just need a second to make sure everything's ready. Oh, he's live now.
Indeed.
Just get set up now. Yep.
He's
There's
ready
quite
to
a
go.
lot of things that I'm juggling here, including both stream and Discord.
Yeah, don't worry.
Format.
So this should be transition now.
Okay, so yeah, people join Iridescence screen share if you want to see the next presentation.
Just waiting to make sure it pops up on stream.
It's live on our end if that's what you're wondering.
It should transition. Yep, okay, we're good on both the live stream. Okay.
Cool.
So first off, I'm Iridescence. Hello, welcome. And this is going to be a presentation over my recent port of Slender the 8 Pages for the PSP. It's going to be basically focusing on the lesson of limitations, and let's get right into it. So what is Slender? Not many people have actually played Slender, at least it seems that way, especially people who are younger. Alongside that, basically, Slender isn't necessarily the most popular game in the world either. Slender the 8 Pages was a one-off game on the PC. Basically, it was gaining a lot of fame and popularity as both sort of a meme and sort of a signature horror game of the early to mid 2010s, especially with YouTube channels like PewDiePie, Markiplier, for example, really started focusing on it. So basically what happens in the game is that the character has limited sprinting abilities and a flashlight where they walk around in a forest. In this forest, basically you're trying to find 8 pages before the Slenderman kills you, and that's it. There's nothing else. It's pretty flat. It's 2D game design and sort of two-dimensional game design, as in it's very linear and there isn't really much in way of depth of the game. It's rather just sort of flat sort of game to play, and it always holds the same sort of value. There's no sort of story, there's nothing else that really gets added. If you win or die, the result is the same. So the story of development, let's talk about that right now. So what I did was I scripted the entirety of basically the Slender for PSP in Lua, using the one Lua engine, which is a proprietary 2D and 3D game engine for the PSP and PS Vita. It was very fast for menu development, and basically the entire menu prototype was ready within an hour or less of actual code. A lot of the time actually was spent in modeling, extracting assets and resources, for example, specifically because of the way that Unity packs its assets. Basically, what Unity does is it pretty much zips everything up in a SHA encoded sort of file, and it's a bit hard to get things out of it without using some special tools, and even then it still takes more time, especially when you have to remodel things like the map. But however, the entire game prototype was about 4 hours of programming, basically just testing and making sure everything works. So what really went wrong? So only 8 sounds could be loaded at once. Now the PSP has a hardware cap of 8 sounds that can be played at once, but the difference between being played and being loaded at once is kind of different. That means that I can only have 8 sounds in total, meaning that I would have to dynamically load and unload sounds, which doesn't really make sense. That's going to reduce a lot of the performance on the PSP in a game that's already kind of hitting the limits of performance. Furthermore, this limitation was only put on the PSP rather than the emulators, so if you were playing on the PSP, you would get an error that a sound couldn't be loaded, even though if you played on PPSSPP or any sort of emulator, it would have just said it was fine. Another problem was that the 3D engine was pretty much broken, and it was not designed at all for like 3D first-person sort of development. It was really meant to be a third-person engine, and it didn't have much camera features really built into it. And basically, a bunch of things would clip out of your frustum plane. As it turns out, the frustum plane is not going to be basically changed. It's going to be set at a certain value, and that's going to clip no matter what. There also was basically no player controller or no real sort of easy way of getting first person to work, meaning that I have to do a lot of tricky math in order to get everything to work out the way that you want it to. So this resulted in being pretty slow on the PSP, even when it was massively underneath the PSP's capabilities, especially seeing that there was about 10,000 vertices to the map, which most other games can handle pretty easily. It also sometimes varies on the PSP, and it doesn't make any sense whatsoever, because for some people the 2000 model doesn't work, some people the 2000 model does work, some people the 1000 model does work, and sometimes it doesn't. It wasn't designed for the 1000 specifically, but sometimes it still can run, alongside the Go and E1000 being sometimes very different. So basically it was mainly PSP 2000 Plus only, except for those specific 1000 models, the E1000 and the N1000. So what about using the Quake engine? It would be slightly graphically better, at least, with probably working lighting, but aside from that, it was tailored mainly for like first-person shooter games, which isn't really the theme of Slender, actually. Slender is meant to be sort of a sort of first-person horror game, which has a wildly different sort of play style to it. It would be equally as slow as using Lua, because it's basically a very big sort of engine in the way that it's supposed to run, and it's not meant to be very lightweight. It uses Quake C, which is, at least in my mind, an inferior or limited programming language, and that's to Lua, and I have a lot of things to complain about Lua, as you guys have seen. So if I think Quake C is worse, then there's kind of a problem there. You also would have quite a bit of different issues that are probably going to arise on Quake Engine as well. And it's also, Quake Engine is based on some pretty old code, and only recently has it started beginning getting refactored and improved. So that sort of leads me on to the state of game engines. Basically, most are limited to C/C++, and other sort of variants of that. I know there's an Objective-C compiler somewhere, but I don't think anyone really uses that, to be frank, alongside probably some other weirder programming languages that people have ported over. Interpreted languages are very much limited by the interpreter, so for example, if you're using Lua, depends what type of Lua interpreter you choose, like Lua Player, for example. it's pretty slow and it's not very extensible, and it takes a lot to work around certain issues if they're not already included. So basically, whatever you get is what you have. We don't really have too many modernized tools for use when it comes to game engines. We don't have like a full Unity editor or something like that. We still do have the Quake editor, which is still somewhat showing its age. There's really been no big or new sort of game engine projects, at least in the last several years, that have been basically promising new things. And basically, most of them hardly take any advantages of C++ 11 or higher in their code bases, which is rather more of a recent development that we have full C++ 17 support. So what do we have today? In terms of tools, we've gotten a new C++ 17 compiler thanks to the work of Top Secret, who's been doing a lot of great work in order to port over the new standard compiler. It's actually GCC 8.20.
Daedalus x64 is not on
Windows,
Vita
it used
yet.
to be 4.3.5
You would have to use
or
the Adrenaline app
4.9.5, I believe, on
for
Linux.
that.
We also have a bunch more libraries, and it's a lot easier to port libraries given the fact that basically
I'll answer a
we
few
have
questions here
more
after he's
modern
done.
sort of code support, so you wouldn't have the problem of this library is written in C++ 11, we can't do it at all. Furthermore, there are many active developers on the scene that are willing to work and willing to help others out, which is a very big improvement overall. We have more programming and scripting languages that are either going to be coming out or are basically already out. Alongside, we're going to have a lot more experience and knowledge of the hardware, which we've sort of gained consistently over time. So the conclusion. Slender PSP is somewhat of a marginally better port than the Quake version. It certainly features a lot better AI and has a lot better of an aesthetic and ambience, but it doesn't necessarily have the same graphical power. Slender PSP is limited by its engine, as was the Quake version as well, and most PSP game engines are modern or modernized. We have many more tools today than we had before, so that really just leaves us with the fact that we have sort of a gap in game engines. So, any questions?
There's one from Gelber in Discord if anyone else is taking. Okay, so this question.
Alright guys, so they're gonna ask some questions here, and I'm just gonna mute it. And so we can just talk about a few things going on here. So Slender, I really didn't play Slender at all on PC or whatever platform it's on. But to have this kind of updated and bring it to the PSP, that would be great. To have another homebrew game. It's always fun to have these different homebrew games, very polished, and just to have them on our system is great. And these guys deserve a lot more than what we're giving them. So hopefully we'll do a lot more shout outs and things like that for all of these devs. And I'm going to go into the comment section here and answer a few questions. So yeah, Dustin was saying, hey, just a thank you to all the contributors. This community is quite something. Yeah, I've always fell in love with the community since I got the PSP back in the day, and the scene was much larger back then, and it was huge. But yeah, it's good to see that we're having this conference now and moving forward. So what we need is Adrenaline 2.0 for the PS Vita firmware 3.73. Yes, we do. Yes, I'm working on getting a second Vita here, guys, so we can get 3.73 enabled on that one. And I also want to get a tutorial for all you Mac users, because I do get a lot of questions on that. And so I want to base one PS Vita on the Mac version, but that's going to be running on 3.73. So realistically, I need 3 of them. And I want one running at 3.60 and one at 3.73 for Windows. And a couple more for the Mac, because I do have a Mac computer and it's working just fine. Yes, that is what many of the users of the PS 3.73 are missing. We are a bit limited on our end. Yeah, you have to, if you want to have the full potential of the PS Vita, you want to downgrade to either 3.60 or 3.65. And here's a question for everyone about the PSP. What is your favorite custom firmware? I've always say it's M33-5 because that was the first time I've ever hacked it, so it's very nostalgic to me. The M33-3 or -4 or 5. Dustin says, no, don't use retro, use Daedalus X64 for N64 emulation. And has anyone been able to play N64 on RetroArch? Not at this time. There are some, on the latest RetroArch, there were several different N64 cores there, but I can't figure out how to install them or how to get them working. It's just really weird. And I do scan files that are N64 ROMs, but I don't get anything going. Sadly, don't have a PS Vita yet. Don't worry, just look around and save yourself $150 and you should be able to get one. Brand new from Japan. Like, if you just wait a couple weeks, you should be good. Daedalus 64 is on Vita. Not yet. My PS Vita is, I gotta do the exploit all over again. Yeah, that's tough when you're working with all this homebrew. It's all good. You can always ask for the tips here in this community comment section. Yeah, you know what? One of the things that I've been lacking is answering questions on these videos. I just have so limited time, and I have to just really take some time to answer some questions. Install Adrenaline. Okay, Robles, thank you for all the tutorials. Thanks, Reef. I really do appreciate you guys watching and commenting and liking my videos. So he's always I'm sorry, he's still answering questions. Big Mac says yes, thank you guys, thank you all for the love and the support, and hopefully I'll get this Patreon going for those of you who want to support a little more to the channel, which is no big deal, no pressure. Drelo says there's auto plugin and auto plugin 2. To overclock your Vita, just use auto plugin. Yeah, you can use either one, but I suggest using auto plugin 2 because it's more updated, more I don't know, it's not like too polished, but I would prefer the second one than the first one. Difficult to downgrade. It is a little bit of a task. I didn't realize how many people really got into different issues when downgrading. For me, when I do these videos, it's the first time I'm going through it with you. And it's not like I tested this like downgrade before. It was just my first shot at it, and it worked. When I pre-record things, I pre-record it. If it works, I upload the video. If it doesn't, I throw away my testing. I do tests before, but when it comes to the downgrading, that one video, it was a little bit more difficult for me to test it because to go back to 3.73 was just a task, and I'm limited to time, so I just kind of winged it. I tried to downgrade it, but when I first received mine, it was just on firmware 3.73. Yeah, they're not comparable. It's an issue with the way it runs. Yeah, N64 is just a tough emulator to crack down on. It's just so tough. So instead of downgrading the firmware, why don't we just bring the custom firmware compatible with the 3.73 in an upgraded stance? Yeah, it's easy to say, but kind of tough to kind of bring everything all up to speed to 3.73. Like Adrenaline 2.0 for instance, yeah. It's going to be a little bit difficult to do that.
Can I put in one more?
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Let's see.
Looks like they're asking one more question.
Rice, I think I pronounced that correctly, asks, why did you pick up a PSP?
Why did I pick a PSP?
It's a good question.
Because it's the platform that I wanted to program for, and it's the one that I actually like programming for, and it's the one that I, actually own too. That's also pretty important. I'm not going to go buy a Vita for like $100 just to program on it. If I'm not interested
it's
in
worth it,
anything
man.
else
Pick
on the
yourself
platform.
up a Vita. It's
like,
not
for
that
example,
expensive.
if I was I'm interested in playing games on the Switch, but I would see that okay, I can probably do some programming on the Switch too.
Why wouldn't you choose PSP? Like, come on. It's the obvious choice of death.
It's the obvious choice if you want to have actual emulation support too. It's probably the best system for doing that on the cheap.
Cool kids dev on PSP.
Okay.
So the next presentation, I believe, is Stardust Engine, which is also iridescent.
Here we go.
Indeed. I'm still being streamed, right?
Yeah. You are.
Okay. Just making sure I transitioned. Okay, on Discord everyone can see?
Yep.
Yeah.
So it looks like they're going to be talking about an engine for developing purposes. And it's going to be the same developer
Waiting
here.
1 second on
Iridescence.
YouTube to catch up because, stream delay.
Drinking some coffee here because I don't
There
want
we
to fall
go.
asleep on you guys. Yeah, but we can
Okay.
give that a shot. Vita's basically your PSP home to go. Yeah.
Stardust Engine, A Breath of Life, also by me, Iridescence. So what is Stardust Engine? Stardust is a 2D and 3D sort of game engine, which is sort of based on the idea of Unity, sort of Unity engine. If you ever used it on the PC, or you probably have played a game using Unity, either on your PC, your phone, something like that. It's a very extensible sort of engine that allows you to continue to add to it whichever features you really need to, and it's rather easy to use. Stardust also intends to be a library meant for general PSP development. It's pretty fast and lightweight, and is a data-driven API, meaning that basically you're more focused on creating sort of assets and things for your game, rather than actually going ahead and delving into the details of how to make something draw onto the screen. It's basically got an asynchronous design, so what that means is that things can happen in different times. Basically, it's not meant to be everything has to run at a specific time. It's meant to take place at different. So why is Stardust Engine needed? There aren't many current game engines, as I've kind of explained beforehand. Many of the old game engines lack a lot of extensibility, so you can't really make an addition to the library without necessarily already having the code and making your own version of said code. Most of those engines aren't really flexible, as in they don't really cover they usually specify into one sort of thing. It would be like a 3D sort of first-person shooter for like Quake. You wouldn't really be using Quake engine to make, a 2D side-scroller as much as you would for like a first-person shooter, for example. And a lot of these engines don't really lack modernity, which is just a fancy word of saying they aren't really up-to-date when it comes to sort of using C++17 and the features that I've said are now sort of available for the PSP. So another reason that's needed is to encourage more developers. Essentially, Stardust Engine aims to be a game engine that really doesn't require experience for either both programming nor really being invested in the PSP scene. So people who are good at C++ are going to be really good at are really just going to be able to work with Stardust Engine without really having to delve into the details that the PSP sort of needs you to put in order for you to be able to really set things up. This really starts to mean that what's being done is that all you really got to do is focus on creating your game with the engine, rather than sort of basically starting from scratch, learning about how the PSP works and all that. It also means that we're doing sort of an editor, which is going to be more in the style of Unity. Basically, it's going to be for basically anyone who really wants to do it, and you would be able to script in an easy language like Python, or eventually we also plan on there being some sort of visual scripting model where you don't even have to learn programming to be able to make a game for both the PSP. It's meant to be simple and easy to use, and it's very easy to integrate into different projects, as I've sort of seen with some of the projects I've already integrated it into. So what can it do? Stardust Engine currently has two really main focuses. It has a utility side and a game side. The utility side is what's currently fully implemented, and the game side is what's currently in development. Basically, that means that the utility side functions on more of the things that you're going to just need as a default for pretty much any sort of program, whereas the game modules specifically are made for games. currently is powering PSP Chat and Minecraft for the PSP. PSP Chat has been able to focus a lot more on the server side, server and client and UI design instead of the engine details. It's really starting to use most of the utility modules, but I believe the UI will start using some of the game modules. And Minecraft for the PSP is using sort of both.
So yeah, we got just this engine that he's just working on here. So we don't really have to listen to the dev here. I mean, if you want to, you can just check out the link. But yeah, I'm thinking of investing some. Let's see here. I want to invest in another PS Vita because I am on 3.60, but I don't want to upgrade to 3.73 because I don't want to go back and forth and just brick my system. And also, I'm just limited to time, so I have to have these systems ready so when anything drops, I can just make that video right away for you guys and not, go through the process of re-hacking or re-going back to 3.73 and things like that, and just have these systems ready for all these different users. For people who are on 3.60 or 365 or 3.73. But yeah, I'm working on that. Hopefully it comes through here pretty quickly with all the updates. And I appreciate you guys commenting down below. It's great to see you guys commenting, and for some reason my chat box just got disappeared. I don't know what the hell happened. Let's add that again. I don't know what happened here. It's unfortunate that we lost that. Sorry, I'll put it back on.
And then you're going to be able to go ahead and start writing code for that. Once it has multi-platform support, then your basic applications are going to be able to do for most of that. So you're going to be basically able to sort of create a game one time using Stardust engine, and it will run on pretty much every platform that you expect it to. So let's look at some of the more of the utility modules. There's obviously more. So the first one is going to be the events module. This sort of handles the event subsystem. So for example, let's say the player jumps. There could be a jumping event that would basically trigger some sort of callback. And these are handled asynchronously. The events updates once per frame in order to be able to handle that. And it handles every single event. For networking, we have some pretty easy TCP data connections. All you got to do is initialize the network manager, and then after that, basically you're going to be able to connect to a server, and once you've done that, you sort of have the system where you can basically send and receive packets from your client to the server, and vice versa. And furthermore, probably one of the more important ones is the profiler, which is a very easy and lightweight performance tool to find optimization areas. You can profile basically one single method by profiler.begin method and profiler.end method, right, surrounding that sort of method, and it will time a single sample of that. You can have as many samples as you really want. That's obviously limited by memory, but it takes up such a small amount that it's not necessarily going to be noticeable. And this is really cool to basically optimize and find out what's happening. The profiler can do a lot of advanced statistics. It finds basically the mean, median, average, and then it also does basically the min and max of it as well. This means that you can have pretty much a big idea of what your performance data is for something. Furthermore, since we do log every single run, every single sample basically that you have on the since you have every sort of sample that you need for performance-wise, you could actually go ahead and make more advanced outputs and stuff like that. You also can profile sub-methods, so methods inside of a method, which could be a pretty cool thing. And theoretically, we can also make the system infinitely recursive, so you could have a method with inside of a method inside of method, for example. Furthermore, let's go ahead and look at the game modules. The main game module is the core of the game engine, and this is really where it starts to look a lot more like Unity than just being a utility. It includes game objects, components, and other things like that. Alongside it has scenes and loadable assets, so you can load a scene from a single file into your game, and you'll have an entire working scene with whatever game objects and components you preset in there. This is a lot like Unity's .scene files. Furthermore, we have audio. Eventually we're going to have 2D and 3D positional audio, which is going to be able to say, given an audio source at a certain position and an audio listener at another position, you can calculate both the volume based on distance, and then you can calculate the pan based on left and right. Audio clips also will have some pretty wide format support, alongside doing basic ones like WAV, MP3, more specific ones like BGM. I believe it includes mod and quite a few other ones as well. Furthermore, rendering, we have a sort of rendering thing for a very flexible sort of backbone that is going to be able to work both as a render core and is going to be able to do a lot more things as well. We have textures, materials, meshes, etc. Things that you're going to be able to use on, for example, each surface. Alongside, you're going to have some baked-in optimizations into the scene rendering process, such as frustum culling and other things. For game modules, you're going to have 2D, so 2D game engines. You can basically set your scene to be a 2D engine, and you're going to be using sprites and tile maps. Sprites being whatever size, and a tile map being something that's more useful. Something, for example, like a platformer or something would be able to set individual tiles to a certain sort of whatever texture you really need to as well. It also will feature some lighting, which is garage shading, which is a hardware-supported lighting for the PSP in order to be fast rather than doing something per pixel, because per pixel would just slow it down too much. You'll also be able to use multiple controllers, and what that means is that you'll have integrated integrated controllers that can use to move up, down, left, right, for example, in a top-down sort of 2D game, and you can also have sort of side-scrolling as well as a different sort of controller setup. And then another thing that's going to be done, and this is currently what's really in progress, is the UI with many sort of easy input options. So you think text fields, buttons, sort of sliders, checkboxes, things like that that can easily be added on. And it can be written in JSON in sort of an HTML-like format. So what you can do is that you can specifically design a panel to have basically these sort of settings on it, and then basically the way that the engine will try to automatically just handle it and make it show up on your screen in a good-looking fashion. So let's look ahead at the sort of 3D side of things. We have model loading. Currently, I'm not sure exactly all of the models that are going to be supported, but I know at least OBJ, DAE, STL are going to be sort of things that I'm looking forward to, alongside level of detail rendering as well. That means that basically further away something is from a certain from a player, the less detail it has, which saves a lot more on performance. Obviously, textures, materials, meshes really start to apply to 3D a lot more than 2D, since 2D is more sprites and tile maps. And the part 3 of game modules, let's look ahead at animations. So eventually every sort of serialized field can be keyframed, meaning that basically what you create inside of components can be keyframed in a certain way for you to be able to change as needed. These can be easily controlled with animation clips. Particles are another sort of thing that is going to be added, which are basically 2D unlit billboards, meaning that basically they always face towards the camera, and the lighting is just going to be able to be set with a color. It's also going to potentially have a simulation with physics support as well, so basically particles will interact realistically with their environment. And of course, with a physics thing, you need a physics engine. So there's going to be 2D and 3D physics, which have some customizable properties. So if you want to increase, decrease gravity, add forces, things like that, you're going to be able to do that. It's also not based on time, so it's based on a fixed update, which is going to be basically allowing it to be, no matter what FPS your game runs at, the physics is the same side. So basically what's going to happen is that we also have a few more extra features, which are features that are meant to be implemented that really haven't been done or seen before. So one of the things that we're going to be adding is terrain. Terrain is a 3D sort of terrain model, which is created from height maps, and basically what this does is it automatically generates terrain based on the heights that you get from said height map. It also is going to allow you to do custom colliders, which is actually kind of useful because these custom colliders are going to allow you to basically have collision with said terrain, so you don't have to custom model it. And the biggest one of all is going to be post-processing. So what we're intending to do is using the media engine to power sort of a post-processor. The media engine is basically going to do a few things here, and it's going to be able to basically write pixel per pixel. It's going to be essentially equal to a pixel shader or fragment shader based on what you do. So based on the math that we actually have done for basically the CPU frequency and everything, it roughly calculates out to being 42.5 to 85 sort of pixel operations per second. Obviously that varies depending on what operations you're doing, because MIPS sometimes does operations as multiple and sometimes can do multiple operations at once. It really depends. But being able to do this really sort of means that we can do some basic color effects, for example, tone mapping, color corrections, etc. And it's also very likely that we could probably implement more advanced things such as blurs and blooms onto basically the post-process engine. It's also a very good possibility that we could be doing things like depth of field and more screen space operations as set by the user. So let's see how you can use it. So the C++ API is the thing that's going to be released first off for everyone to use. It will have some documentation for setup and use and how to basically use the C++ API. The next thing that will be released is sort of a scripting only sort of system, which is a port of the C++ API to a specific programming language. The first one that I intend to do would be something more like Python, but we could also probably see something like Lua, JavaScript, other sort of languages like that as well. It's going to be a single scripting interpreter, and it's roughly equivalent to the C++ API. It'll be released basically second then. And then finally, the last and most exciting one is going to be the full editor. So what it's going to really be able to do is that the editor is really just this big multi-tool, which allows you to sort of start to create games. You can drag, drop things into your scene, set up the way that everything works from a visual interface rather than having to do it either in code or manually. So the editor is also going to have sort of a scripting sort of support to it. So you're going to have customizable components with scripting, which allows you to basically run your own sort of scripts. Another thing here is going to be editors and visual scripting, which is something that's sort of planned as a post-release, but that's going to be very useful for beginners, especially since you won't even have to learn Python. You're going to be able to write the majority.
Thank you guys for being here and for commenting. It means a lot to me. To see you guys go back and forth in the comments, it's amazing.
Unreal Engine 4's blueprint system works. Basically, the full editor is something that's going to be released last. So when is the release? Soon, trademarked. So in reality, it's going to be 1 to 3 months, and that's really sort of subject to change. Basically, the C++ API is going to be the first release, Python the second release, and the full editor would be the third release. And basically what that means is that you're going to have a rolling release schedule where more and more people can sort of start to get into it. So where can you get it? Basically, you're going to obviously be able to get it from GitHub, which is the main repository, which is this very long link because I have a very long GitHub name. And there will also be a few beta releases of the C++ API for people to test and use beforehand with some of the documentation, but a lot more documentation will be released upon the first official C++ release. Next thing that I'm going to post is I'm going to post it to Reddit for the people who are here from Reddit. There's going to be 3 different times when it comes to both C++ scripting and editor releases. And then finally, I'm going to be posting on YouTube. If you're watching on the Iridescence channel, please subscribe to see some more releases of basically all of the things that I'm working on here on this presentation. So, any questions?
don't think there's any questions for that. That was a pretty...
Sorry, I'm trying not to make this awkward. I know there were a few questions in the chat earlier. It's just, there's a lot to go through.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's quite a few questions.
This was a 30-minute presentation, so yeah, I can agree.
Jesus
Wow.
Christ. Okay. Will any games work online? So how's the networking support looking?
So the networking support is currently the same networking that powers
also
PSP
need a
Chat.
laptop.
So yes, you could do games online. It would involve people creating their own sort of servers and stuff like that. It's sort of something that is going to be a little bit more complicated because there isn't really a good way to make that into an editor to basically make your own server and client system. But potentially there's going to be some more stuff like that for the networking support. Aside from that, you can still use it at the bare bones sort of socket library that you're sort of expecting right now.
I've got here from yeah, I'm not muted. From C Zapla TV. Can you do games like The Binding of Isaac or RPG style games, kind of like RPG Maker?
I believe so, and especially with the post-releases, I intend to do things, for example, version 1.1 and version 1.2, sort of the post-release releases, are going to have some more things in the editor that will allow you to be able to create and tailor specifically to a certain type of genre, so top-down 2D, sort of side-scrolling 2D or platformers, for example, and then you're also going to be able to do some more different things with that as well, including RPGs is one of the supported formats as well. And if you're talking about basically doing maybe like a RPG that's sort of 3D with sort of like pop-ups and stuff like that, that can be handled with both the UI system, or you could do a 2D switch.
I've got another one here from RX000. Is it possible to program a cel-shaded game?
With the post-processor, we're probably going to be able to do something cel-shaded. If not, it really depends on how good the post-processor gets on that, I'm going to say. Because it's probably not too convenient to do it just on the GPU. As I don't believe there's support for that.
In terms of the 3D side of thing, what's the maximum poly count that you think the engine will be able to handle before exploding?
The maximum poly count before the engine is going to start exploding. Well, okay, the poly count is probably going to be, I don't know exactly, probably 100. I can't give you a solid number on that. I haven't had the full 3D engine implemented yet, and I can't tell you what something that doesn't exist is going to have, but using a level of detail and a lot of tricks like that, you're probably going to be able to reduce a lot of the vertices and polygons that need to.
So hopefully we get some games here talked about in the next presentations to come. There's quite a few developers that are going to be in this conference, and it might take some time. So if we get another engine build or something like this, I'm going to have to go run out real quick to get something, but I'll keep the stream going here for you guys to talk back and forth. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comment section. And it looks like you guys are just talking amongst yourself, which is great. And I'm just going to go back and refax. Noticed on a lot of the RetroArch tutorials, people are having trouble with adding playlists. Using the manual scan, ROMs unzipped, and switching to scan inside archives allowed RA to generate them. Downgrade your firmware to 3.60, then install Enzo Spoof and do all the nice plugins, and you're laughing. I waited a year to do that, to do what took me a day and regret the time. So yeah, Dustin has a good point. If you can downgrade to 3.60, go ahead and do that, because you will have so much... you have so much to work with, and the 3.60, 3.65 just has so much compatibilities with Adrenaline and all sorts of fun stuff. So especially Adrenaline, that's just the main one, because you have the whole native PSP interface on your PS Vita, and it's just worth it. You take the time, take a good hour out of your day just to kind of learn on it, and watch my video on how to downgrade. And hopefully it's a good video for you guys to understand. I try to make it as simple as possible when it comes to these tutorials, because I know some people out there, they're too repetitive, or they talk about things too much, or they explain things too much about a certain plugin. But for me, I'm just like, just install this plugin and you'll be fine. Let's just move on, because some of these videos last about 30 minutes long when you're describing every single thing. The downgrading process wasn't too difficult for me. Like I said before, I winged it. When I did the video, that was my first time doing the downgrade, and it worked just fine. And with the SD2 Vita, if you already have SD2 Vita on 3.73, it works perfectly. All you have to do is just disable your plugins, and then when you're back on 3.60 Hinkaku Enzo, just re-enable them. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to add that part at the end of the video because my rendering issues. And so Drelo asked, also, does SD2 Video works on 3.73 firmware? Yes, that was one of the first. That's actually the first hack video I had for the PS Vita after I installed Hinkaku H Encore 2 with 3.73, and it works just fine. The SD2 Vita is one of the first things you gotta do when hacking your PS Vita. When you get one, if you're new to the scene and you want to get a PS Vita, I recommend you getting the SD2 Video adapter and a large micro SD card. I would suggest either a 256 or a 512. I haven't jumped on the 512 train yet. I see a lot of people on it, and I should get on it because I'm going to add so many different games. So let's go back here and
we'll see how that goes.
let's check out what we got next here. I don't have a Discord, but a lot of people recommend it to have a Discord so I can talk to you guys.
Well, Z is ready anyway. So if everyone could join Z's stream to see the stream about Daedalus 64 and Nintendo 64 emulation.
Yes, guys, N64 emulator. Hell yes. Oh my, I gotta write my notes now. N64. Agreed, SD2 Vita is game changing. PS analog drifting. Please help. Oh yeah, my PSP analog is also drifting. I'm gonna change that and get you guys updated on it. But how does the 512 gigabyte works? So it's its current state. So what's going on here?
Z, are you meant to be speaking?
So. Yes. Can you see the PowerPoint?
Yep.
Perfect.
Okay, let me make sure everything's working.
All right, stay tuned, guys. Here we go. Daedalus X64.
Daedalus.
I'm gonna mute my mic here so it's not too
N64
distracting.
emulated for the PSP. Currently, we are working on updating the media engine code to be able to queue the actual functions, so that it's no longer flopping between the main CPU and the Mii, like it would do before when the Mii was busy. So therefore, it allows the main CPU to continue on working without any kind of halts in performance or anything like that, which really gives us a massive frame boost. There are many games syncing quite high, such as Oot syncing all the way up to 17 FPS in Kokiri Forest. Currently, we have already gotten to this point. Over the last 2 years, we've been able to update the code to C11, as well as the improved media engine support. And we've added support for hardware detection of the PlayStation Vita and the ability to use the right analog stick. And thanks to Wally, we have a whole new UI. In the future, we plan to complete the Mii implementation so that it's completely stable and no longer quite as finicky, and focus on improving the graphics and audio of the emulator, and update to the C11 standard. And as to everybody, thank you. Seriously, everybody, this is great. This has been a community project so far, and I've learned a lot, especially about C++. I am absolutely awful with anxiety and public speaking, but trying to make it through this. So thanks to everybody, and here we are. Real short.
Okay, testing. Okay.
Okay.
So there is the presentation list. Take a look before they change it.
Now?
We got the DS emulator, Minecraft.
He had to go.
Ah, of course. Okay. So just a
Yeah.
timing issue then. Yeah.
Okay.
If anyone has any questions, Wally can answer them just here.
So that was it for the N64 presentation?
Doesn't look like it.
Oh man. That was it? I was hoping for some more information on it. Did he have to leave?
Okay. So can I take that as no questions?
I guess maybe they'll,
Question, are the guys speaking actually the creators of D64? I don't believe they created, but I think
they were involved with the
they
project.
were involved with it, yeah.
Yeah, early on. Random has a question. The emulator does use the PSP's GPU. Anything else? Maybe from YouTube?
Does it have N64 controller support?
Oh, buddy.
Full potential of the PSP, Daedalus 64, DS, Spelunky.
Sorry, I was on mute and I just couldn't, use Discord properly. So I don't know if anyone knows me, but I'm Wally. I'm just going to answer one or two questions about the sound. The sound is going to be on the media engine, which I'm sure you'll hear Iridian's Rose talk about. Is that how you say that? Yeah, Iridescent Rose. So the sound's going to be on the media engine. We're going to be pushing some of that stuff across to that eventually once we've tidied up the code a little bit. It's still very buggy, but yeah, we're getting somewhere at the moment. So that should be in 1.1.9. Yeah. Goldeneye, not Goldeneye. Come on. Ask a better question, please.
Yeah, so it looks like he had to
Our
leave.
time is valuable. More valuable
Yes.
than GoldenEye.
Yes, well, GoldenEye is one of those tricky games. It's particularly hard to emulate, especially on a PC even. It's one of those the games that really pushes the Nintendo 64. And yeah, so we hope to get it somewhat playable, but we don't know yet how
To
it's gonna
stream only, basically what's happening is that Z had to leave early due to personal
reading some of the
circumstances and the fact that he has work right now.
There are 2 new ones there in the conference channel.
So would Daedalus have to be rewritten to run on the PS Vita outside of Adrenaline and take advantage of the Vita's hardware?
The Daedalus
No, not
presentation
exactly,
was short
because
and is over
the
right
Vita
now.
stuff you can bridge across
Ask
to
your
the
questions
Vita
in the
hardware
chat.
and then use that particular function. We're still trying to work out how to do that, but we've done that with the controls, which you would have seen Z talk about the analog stick.
Damn, he had to leave,
I'll
so
just check YouTube quickly.
that's unfortunate. I really wanted to see his presentation on Daedalus
No,
X64.
let's move on. That should be okay.
Crap.
I'll answer any more questions in chat. Cool.
All right. So
Thanks, guys.
Don't worry. That's pretty cool anyway. The next presentation is actually about GoldenEye. What brilliant timing.
GoldenEye.
That means it's on me. So if everyone enjoyed my stream.
Thank you guys for being part of the stream here
Let me know
and
if you can see my screen.
enjoying the conference,
yeah,
PSP
we can.
conference, homebrew
Cool.
conference.
So if everyone
PSP
enjoyed
homebrew
my stream, that would be great.
conference. We have the GoldenEye
The
presentation.
presentation is going to be about a remake
I'll
of
mute my
GoldenEye
mic.
for the PSP. This remake of GoldenEye is built on a heavily modified Quake engine built for the PSP. I'll get into the details as this presentation progresses. So the premise, it's a recreation of GoldenEye 64's multiplayer for the PSP. We don't want to rule single player out of the question, but it would require a lot more work and we would need a lot more people on board. We'd also just need more interest. So right now it supports playing against other players locally, online, or against bots. Now for PSP Street, only bots are available because of obvious wireless limitations. But I can confirm that local multiplayer does work, as this screenshot from Stix15 confirms. Basic gameplay is implemented. You can shoot people and kill people and play them.
Okay, so the stream just... What happened to the stream? Audio. No sound. There's no sound, guys. What the hell happened? Go, man. Go. You got this. He is panicking. He's like, oh crap. The sound is broken. To me, it's bugged out. Yeah, something happened here. I'm not sure what happened. Damn. It's tough when you're, you got like 3 different streams going. Wow, they got 93 people watching. Over 100 likes. That's good to see. We have this small community enjoying this scene here, the PSP scene. And go to subscribe to Iridescence. He does a lot of Minecraft updates, and I'll be doing that video here pretty soon. It's either going to drop either tomorrow or Monday, but he developed, or he's continuing to develop the Minecraft for the PSP. And it's a great upgrade to the original Minecraft game, and it looks great. But there are a few bugs, and that's why I haven't really updated that video yet. And I wanted to dedicate this week to PSP homebrew and hacking, and just kind of get everyone updated.
Players spawn in the same place all the time.
I'll mute my mic here again.
And obviously that makes the game a bit difficult to enjoy. But in terms of the core gameplay mechanics,
we missed his whole
implemented, and
presentation.
as you can see here, they work completely fine.
Can you restart it?
I'm going to skip in a bit where we get an opportunity to see a few different weapons. As you can see, it's very hard to get into the game, if you will, because once you respawn, you're almost immediately taken out of it. You can see here at the top that whenever weapons do not have sound effects in place, it will say it can't load the sounds, but the game will continue to play. So it's not an issue with playability. Since this video was recorded, more sounds have been added, so don't worry about this too much. If anyone recognizes the map, then fantastic. This is a recreation of the original map, so it's not a direct rip, but it's quite authentic, and I don't think anyone will really be complaining. So I think I'm going to leave the video for footage around there, and I'm going to switch over to a weapons test. So again, without sound, the usefulness of this is decreased a little bit, but I wanted to show you some of the weapons that are working and show you some issues that currently remain. So the P99 here, or the Wolfram PP7 as it's called in some Bond games, maybe GoldenEye, I kind of forget if I'm being honest with you, works perfectly. Reload animations and shooting, as well as the DD44 Dostove, work perfectly here. You'll see later on that some weapons have issues. The AK-47 animation is slightly strange here, as you can see. The recoil works fine, and the reloading animation is a lot slower. However, it's timed correctly. The revolver, again, is a bit slow, but functions, and that's a very easy fix to implement. In terms of melee, or the slappers, as it's crudely called in the game itself, they work. There's an issue where the slappers remain on screen even when you're not actively punching someone. We're aware of that. That will be fixed in due course if everything goes to plan. So, what's performance like? The goal is a 60 frames per second GoldenEye experience at full PSP resolution. In terms of getting the engine to the state of running the game at 60 frames per second, we've had to consider a few different things. First of all, hardware, sound playback. In PSP games where, for various reasons, sound playback was not correctly offloaded to the media engine, or specifically the virtual mobile engine, this could incur a performance cost that was pretty substantial. I believe it was an extra 15 to 20% on the CPU just for decoding sound. On a system like the PSP, where we don't have that much CPU headroom to work with, that's kind of a big deal. So we have hardware MP3 playback in the engine, fortunately. We're still working at the kinks, especially with music, but all things going to plan, sound should effectively be free. There's an interesting idea thrown around here by one of our developers called Dima, considering using the Kirk cryptography chip even, to traverse the PSP files, which are effectively the map files for PSP. Let me see. Sorry, just one moment. Sorry about that, just some difficulties. So regarding Kirk is typically used for sorting trees well, it's not used for sorting trees. It's specifically used for encryption and decryption. The idea is that Kirk typically computes hashes, and BSPs are just lists of hashes. So we could theoretically use Kirk to traverse all of our map files and gain some performance that way. Now, this is completely theoretical right now, but down the line, it could be used to provide a nice boost. In terms of VFPU math, this, fortunately, works. Recently, Stix51 implemented this and saw huge gains in some scenarios. I don't want to say all scenarios because different bottlenecks apply in different areas, but all things going to plan, it's a great performance speed up. So what needs doing? First of all, we need testers. And as silly as that sounds, we need testers. Because not a lot of people are willing to go through the game, it seems, and list what issues we have and what we need to do. We need to fix spawn locations, as I mentioned, because right now everyone is spawning at the same place every time. Some animation times need fixing. Music needs a bit of work in terms of getting it to play back correctly. And the HUD and menu are currently placeholders. Other than that, the game is in a good state, and hopefully it will get to a very good place in the near future. And here on the last slide is a little comparison of the original game on the right and our PSP remake on the left. Does anyone have any questions? I'm full screens here, so I can't really check the chat for questions, but if there are any on YouTube or Discord, please let me know.
Sure. Can you play as Timothy Dalton? Asks Zodosar.
So that's actually a very good question. We hadn't been thinking very much about the different bonds that you could play as, but in theory, we could rip all of these models from the original game and they would all work fine. So if memory serves, Timothy Dalton was hidden in GoldenEye's files. At the very least, his profile images. In other words, if he's in the original game, yes, we will get to him eventually.
Okay, Cobra exclamation mark asks, will the guns sway as you like turn in the original, and will there be aim assist?
So, gun sway or weapon bobbing should be very easy to implement as it was originally in Quake. Currently, there is no weapon bobbing, but again, it's a trivial thing to implement and shouldn't be too difficult. If it's in the original game, which actually, come to think of it, it is, we can implement it quite easily. What was the other half of that question?
The other half was, will there be aim assist?
So I think aim assist is kind of a bit of a necessity on the PSP when you're either inhibited with one analog stick on either looking around or movement. You have to make that choice, and neither is really convenient. particularly on that small screen, you will really need that aim assist. So yes, I think aim assist is going to be a necessary evil here.
There's another one from Fix. Will Odd Job stay OP?
Yes. I'm sorry to say. We will be using his original model if things go to plan. So that means his original height data will be preserved unless we feel like stretching him a bit. So the likelihood is Oddjob will remain OP. But we are looking for people to help us out, just so we're clear, on getting these assets ripped from the original game, which is the easy part, and bringing them over to the PSP, which is the hard part.
I have a question.
Yep.
Why not rip the assets from the source port, like from
From GoldenEye Source, you mean?
Just downscale them instead of trying to get the mesh data from C4 version. Because I feel like getting them from the source version would be slightly easier because they're in a more modern file format for rare uses.
So that's a good question. As it turns out, GoldenEye has extensive modding tools for the original game, and ripping models and textures from it is incredibly easy. It would actually be a bit harder to rip from source, but we could certainly look into it in the future. The other issue with ripping from source is that it's an actively maintained project, and there might be more issue with stealing some assets from that.
There's another few questions.
Sure.
One from pre-release Gelber. Is
Okay.
there a tutorial coming to the game?
No, I don't think there's plans to make a tutorial, and as I said, there aren't even plans to make single player as it stands, because there simply isn't the manpower or the support there right now.
And how are audio fixes coming along?
Audio fixes, so actually even I'm not sure the current state of this because I haven't had a working PSP to test in a while. But from what I know, sound playback, so all the weapons playback sounds correctly. Music I don't think it works correctly right now. We have original sounds ripped from the game, but playing them back doesn't quite work correctly if my memory serves right.
All right. The last part is CT/T on the actual game, or actually, I'm not quite sure how to interpret this question.
Thank you
This
for
might be
subscribing,
terrorist or
Dark Blood.
counter-terrorist.
What do you think we'll present to Desmume? I'm gonna mute this audio here. Give me 1 second, guys. Hey, Cortex. Hey. Well, this video is very educational. Yes, likewise. Yep, you can still learn a lot. PS Vita 2000, let's see. For the PS Vita 2000, there's really no way to improve the display just because it's more of a hardware. I don't think there is an updated... There could possibly be an updated screen that you can replace it with. I haven't really looked into that. That's actually a great question. But if you're looking to get a PS Vita, you have the option to get the 2000, which has the internal memory. But if you get the 1000, you will get the nice, beautiful OLED display. But you would have to pay, pay extra for the memory card, and that's what you're giving and taking there with the PS 1000. So let's see if they're talking about anything here. So they're just answering questions here for the GoldenEye game. If you're not familiar with that, it's like an original N64 game, very popular back in the day, and it still is now. It's well, not too popular, but it's still pretty. It was a good game. It's still a good game, but to bring it on the PSP is going to be a lot of fun, and hoping to see that drop soon. So they are both the same. I compared PS Vita 1000 2000. So the PS 1000 has a much more heavier feel to the 2000, and the 1000 has a better display. Unfortunately, you have to buy their proprietary memory cards in order for you to start hacking in and doing stuff to it. You have to buy the memory card, which are extremely expensive. It's nuts. And the PS Vita 2000, from what I heard, they feel a lot cheaper. less materials, and the screen is not that great. So they replaced it from an OLED to a original, or to a standard LCD display. And let's see here. Wait, what's this about just homebrew scene and indie? Except the screen. Well, you can use the screen saturation. I was watching this. Can you greet me, Robles? Hey, Rafita. Rafita. It's a long name. There's an app called Registry Editor. Yeah, thank you guys for being part of the stream. It's a lot of fun to be here and to enjoy this conference, and I will start making some content later tonight and have you updated with a few videos for tomorrow. So I'm excited about that. And let's see. They're still answering some questions here. It's the best option to upgrade the screen.
I don't want to rule the campaign
So
out,
it's
but
the
we
best
do require a
option
lot
to
more
upgrade the
people, a lot
screen.
more
Helps
interest
with.
than we actually have right
Can
now.
you?
So
Okay.
if you can find people, you can round them up, and you can get people who are interested in working on this project. Absolutely, I want to support them and make the campaign. But right now,
I'm from
no.
Spain.
Here's
Have you got
another.
someone else?
Yeah, here's another question by Dark Fury Gaming. Have you contacted the host that has made the game?
So in the next presentation
original
here,
developers of Goldeneye PSP.
hopefully it's
presumably
another game, or if it's some kind of engine, I'm gonna have to run out here real quick.
We're borrowing assets from right now. The answer is no. But the project is defunct and we couldn't find any content.
Yeah, I'm planning on getting another PS Vita here. I'm actually looking online right now for one for cheap. I would love to buy a brand new one to spoil myself on my birthday. That would be nice to get another PS Vita
Right.
and do another beautiful unboxing.
Okay.
Today.
Another question
And
by Patrick Tyler.
yeah,
How would you edit the maps?
because I do have to have a PS Vita 2000. That way, we're just not really seeing just the 1000. And then if people have questions for the 2000, I can test it out there and answer your questions.
All right. There's one from Zodasar here.
So it's how is everything in America? Everything is great. Minnesota. I am from Minnesota, the state of Minnesota, and they have quarantined most of the locations, but not the entire country is not on lockdown. Unfortunately, they're still have open businesses here and there, essential businesses. So Minnesota, I'm from Minnesota, and they just started the lockdown, stay home, lockdown order yesterday on Friday, 5 p.m. And you can only go out if you need food or like supplies, and that's it. They don't want you really gathering in more than like 10 people. You can go out and walk, take a walk, or if you want to go play, do something on your own, that's fine. But nothing too crazy. Like today's my birthday and I'm just kind of stuck at home. I was hoping to go out walking with my family, but it's raining, so we can't really even do that. So I'm stuck here with you guys. I'm just kidding. No, I've been looking forward with this conference and the stream for 3 weeks now, and I'm so excited to be here and learning all this new stuff that's coming out for the PSP, so that's great, and I'm so excited about it. And hoping to bring you guys more content. I'm so excited. Yes, you'll know both about the 1000, 2000 through your testing videos. You should upload it as well from your based experience. Exactly. So I want to have both versions. That way you guys know exactly what's going on. And we go from there. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And hopefully I can get a limited edition. I'm going to talk to my wife and see if we can get one for my birthday and go from there. But I don't want to be spending money because I actually have to move out soon, and I got 2 months left on my lease, and I gotta move out. They're kicking us out on the apartment, which I don't want, but that's the reality of my world here. So yeah, I prefer the PSP 1000. Yeah, I do too. Elena, is that how you say it? Echeverria. So, Reef says happy birthday. Thank you so much. It is my birthday, guys. If you didn't know, or I guess I really didn't say anything, but it is my birthday today. So,
Back to as soon as I can.
looks like they're done
Thanks for
answering
watching.
questions.
I believe the next presentation is Paint Pro by Masterman, which I will also be presenting. I
Oh,
have three
great.
back to back here because my scheduling is just fantastic. Okay, so Masterman has asked me to present this project for him because I believe his English isn't very good, or he's not very competent with his English. So Paint Pro is effectively, it's a photo making editing program made for the PSP written in C. Currently it's in the pre-alpha state and there isn't very much to show, but this is one of those projects where it's more showing what is to come. So right now there are a few different menus. I'm sorry, I haven't really.
Thanks, everyone. I
figured out
appreciate it.
everything
Thank
here,
you, thank you,
but
thank you.
In the left side of the menu, there's a change log, and there's a list of recent files which currently isn't working, and you can switch between the two. So, drawing in its most basic form works right now. In this pre-alpha version of Paint Pro, you can draw red and blue with the pen tool. You can access red and blue by quick access. You can get red by holding down L, and you can get blue by holding down R. So workspaces are a concept here for, well, as you guessed, having different workspaces. In Paint Pro, you can switch on different menus by pressing triangle and hovering over the different workspaces. There are also two windows in the right side of your workspace, but right now they're not used and they're empty. Later on, he's going to make a layer menu and an action menu using them. So that's going to be very useful in the future. So in terms of the tool menu, at the left side of the screen, you can find a tool menu that provides you with a few different tools. In the tool menu, you can choose a pen to draw squares, an eraser to erase painted squares, and the filling tool to fill empty spaces. You can choose any tool by hovering over it and pressing the cross button. There are a few screenshots here as we go, of course. The first one is the tool menu, and the second one is the eraser on a filled blue screen. So the circle menu is going to be quite an interesting thing. That sounds like I'm really spoofing, but I saw this presentation, I promise. So the circle menu is kind of interesting because you use the analog stick to select a variety of different options from one little. So thanks to Exnonol for making this possible. Currently it's not working, but it's just a question of time. The circle menu makes it possible to change the tool's parameter and its color. It's also possible to undo and redo from this menu. You can press the red cross to close the menu. As you can see in the screenshot there, it's highlighted there just at the bottom. To control the stick, or to control the circle menu, you just use the analog stick, so it's fairly straightforward. To open the circle menu, you hold square. So you can also control brush size and cursor speed. You can change the brush size by pressing up or down to increase and decrease the size respectively, on the D-pad of course. To change the cursor speed, you press left to slow it down and you press right to speed it up. So this is coming towards the end now, but you can also clear your workspace by pressing select, and you can go back to the menu by pressing start. And this is a picture of a cleared workspace. So that's all there is right now, but as he said earlier, I must stress that this is a pre-alpha and very little is implemented of what is to come. A lot will be coming in the future, but stay tuned. Do you have any questions?
Not really a question, but a remark. L130 from YouTube says it would be great to add an animation mode.
Animation mode. Masterman is in the chat here himself, so I ask you to redirect some of these questions to him. I'm sure that is on the table, but I can't confirm that personally.
Ah, right. He's right there in chat. All right.
Yeah.
There's one from Abu Bat.
Thanks, everyone. I really do appreciate it. It means a lot to me. And let's just go back to where we were at. And it says, I'm bored, long time at home. I'm sorry to hear that, man. Hopefully you have a PSP and you could just, have some fun with that and just play on that, mess around with some homebrew, add some different games, and just go from there. Yes, so you'll know both. Okay, I prefer the PSP 1000. I prefer that as well. But the PSP 3000 has a beautiful display on it, and I can't get enough of it. And it's just a nice, easy screen to work with. Thank you, Reef, for the birthday shout out. I like the 1000 model better. Electro Entertainment. Been home like 4 days now. Yeah, I have to work because I'm part of an essential business where we provide cell phones and hotspots, so that's what I'm doing. And I'm the head technician there, so I'm working all the time. They want me working 50 hours, but I try to get 45 or enough work for them to be pleased, because I'm not trying to do 50. That's just too much, because they got other things going on. And I've heard PSP 2000 had less ghosting than the third. I heard that the 3000 has less ghosting and better performance with the better screen. PSP 1000 have good materials. Yeah, I agree too. I wish there was a way to add the 3000 display and performance to the 1000. That would be great. But it's fine. And has better battery than the first. Thank you for the shout out. Thank you. Thanks, Alex. Thank you. I stopped playing Shadow of Destiny for the PSP to watch the stream. Nice.
Correct.
So Paint Pro is going to be a lot of fun.
The next presentation is me again. It's a presentation on the full potential
Thanks,
of the PSP.
Electro.
So if you give me a second.
Thanks, Elena.
There we go.
A lot of users requested that, even my father as well.
The stream's gone really funky there for a second.
PSP 3000 is finished, yeah.
Okay.
Still looking for the E1000 though.
So, this is a very technical and theoretical presentation about the full potential of how we could use the PSP.
Here we go, guys. The full potential of the PSP. This is going to be interesting. What happened? No. Refresh. Refresh. Go, 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 go. I can't miss this presentation. In the comment section, he's like, the power went out.
So, this is a very technical and theoretical presentation about the full potential of how we could use the PSP.
Okay, so the stream is down a little bit for the meantime, and the admin just let us know that the power went out. Effing power went out. We'll be back in 1 minute. Okay, so we'll just stay tuned here for that. If you guys have any questions concerning any PSP homebrew, or you're having trouble with something, let me know.
First of all, the PSP OS, or the system, reserved some of our memory. It was around 8 megabytes in total. So of our 32
Perfect.
megabytes accessible to commercial games,
I'll mute my mic.
8 of that was taken away, leaving us with 24 megabytes, or about 75% of what we originally had available. The media engine is not accessible by commercial developers. This was done really as a precaution, and only official functions could be passed through it. So ones that Sony wrote themselves, such as passing audio and video playback to the virtual mobile engine. Only 32 megabytes of the 64 and later models is accessible for commercial games. This was purely a matter of compatibility. And to answer a question I'm surely going to get, the extra 32 was added as a UMD cache and to make the web browser work more effectively. It was also used in the PSP Go for save states, I believe. Finally, Kirk, and by extension Spock, is also not accessible directly. Again, as a precaution. So what can we do? The simple answer is, as homebrew developers, we are not limited by the same arbitrary software shackles imposed by Sony. In other words, we have kernel mode, which allows us to bypass all of these system imposed restrictions. So we have access to the extended RAM, so all 64 megabytes, but we also get to shaft Sony's reserved memory out of RAM. So we have virtually all 32 megabytes free again. So even the 1000 models have more memory to work with. We have arbitrary code execution on the media engine, which is a fancy way of saying we can run our code there. That's a huge deal because we basically have another processor that has the same clock speed on the same architecture as the main one, with the only difference being the absence of a vector unit. Kirk, again, can be directly accessed now. This is a slightly more edge case scenario, but Kirk can be used for hashing and list sorting. The only catch to all of this is that kernel mode requires software to be unsigned, because signing a software will result in kernel mode being escaped, if you will, and we are back into system restrictions. So what's the potential for all of this? If you do some simple maths, as I've shown on the screen, we get 42.5 operations per pixel per second at 60 frames per second if we dedicate the entire media engine to pixel effects, or 85 at 30 frames per second. That's a pretty big deal when you think about it. If we were to reserve the entire media engine for software effects, we could have up to 85 operations per pixel per second at a solid 30 frames per second. So as I've said here, lots of pixel operations are now free. But I also want to mention that the media engine can be used for more than just effects. For instance, Minecraft PSP uses the media engine to offload terrain generation. And I'm going to steal a bit of Iridescent's presentation here by recapping how big a deal that is. In Minecraft PSP, the frame rate, it was around 7 FPS when everything was being done on the main CPU. As the initial terrain generation was moved to the media engine, performance doubled to around 15 frames per second. Finally, once the media engine and main CPU balance was improved, we had 60 frames per second. So it's an astronomical increase in potential performance. We have Kirk pre-computing hashes and lists, an idea I didn't get to go through because I had that technical issue. Sorry about that. But the idea basically is to use Kirk's encryption and decryption capabilities and harness them in a slightly different way to go through pre-computed lists, which could be used in, for instance, Quake and Half-Life 1 BSPs or map files. So the result could be vertex or fragment shaders done in software on the media engine. I don't need to explain how big a deal that is because commercial developers could never do this. Yet here we are. So as I said, lots of nice software-driven effects are just a nice bonus. The VME is also largely unknown. In fact, if you go to the main PSP documentation page hosted by Hitmen, you get an overview of the chip, and that's it. In theory, the VME is said to be a reprogrammable FPGA, which could be used for very fast specialized operations. One page is even cited that is capable of 5 gigaflops alone. To put this number in perspective, the PS2, when all of its processors are utilized to their maximum potential, can generate 6.2 gigaflops of compute performance. So that's a huge deal, and it's something we will definitely be investigating down the line if we can. So I've called this the XFB trick because it reminds me of something people did with the external frame buffer on the Wii. The idea is this. The scene is rendered to a texture, which is then stored in RAM. From there, the media engine can access and modify this texture, i.e. the scene we've just rendered. Finally, once the media engine has done all of its processing and added lots of nice effects, the texture, or the scene, can be sent to the screen. The overall result is tone mapping, as shown on the left, lots of bloom, as shown on the right, and many other effects are now possible that would have required substantially more resources before. Now, as I've said here, this is with the entire media engine dedicated to effects and post-processing, where we may also want to use it, for instance, for physics and simulation. So another thing that people dismiss a lot of the time are NURBs. NURBs are an alternative to using polygons for geometry. The full name for them is non-uniform rational basis splines. They are mathematically defined curves instead of points or polygons. This image here is a good demonstration of what NURBs are about. On the left, we have a wine glass at minimum detail level, and in the middle, we have a wine glass that is tessellated using mathematically defined NURBs to generate more detail and more polygons. This can be dynamically adjusted based on many different factors, such as the player's position from the geometry in question, to both improve performance and improve overall quality. The issue with NURBs is that it's difficult to utilize them properly because the PSP is one of the only devices to this day that has hardware support for NURBs, which is kind of special if you think about it, but this also makes them a little bit more frustrating to work with. As I said, they support tessellation, so the final infinitely smooth surface is not usually rendered. Instead, the polygons are dynamically tessellated and and the overall resulting geometry is best optimized for both performance and level of detail. The last image on the screen is from a PSP game, the name of which has embarrassingly slipped my memory. But this is a PSP game released in 2005 called, it was either Death Jr. or something with death in the name. And it's one of the only games on the PSP, or indeed any console, that makes heavy use of NURBs. I wanted to mention this not because I know a huge deal about the game, but because we know for a fact it's possible in a playable game situation. So what did commercial developers achieve on the PSP? Well, from left to right, we've God of War, Medal of Honor, and Gran Turismo. These are all visually appealing games, and they really pushed the platform to the limit. Well, to the limit they were allowed. It's important to remember that these commercial developers achieved what they did with substantially less resources than we had available. For them, CPU load would have been a real potential bottleneck. But for us, with the media engine involved, we now have substantially more overhead. And if anything is now a bottleneck, it has to be the GPU in almost any situation. So, what can we expect? This is just the end, and I wanted to give a few examples of the level of visuals we should be aiming for and aspiring to on the PSP. From left to right, we have two Wii games in the PlayStation 2 game: The Last Story, Super Mario Galaxy, and Killzone, all running real time on their respective hardware. Now, both the Wii and the PS2 are slightly above the PSP spec, but with the extra resources available to us, there is no reason we can't generate visuals of this level, and there's no reason we can't aspire to achieve visuals like any of these three games. And I think you'll agree with me when I say that if we were to achieve graphics like this on the PSP, it would be an amazing achievement, something that commercial developers themselves could not do. And I think that's very exciting for the PSP homebrew scene. It's important to remember that we have more at our disposal than PSP developers ever had before. So we should be aiming higher. We should be aiming a bit beyond what PSP games set before, and we should be aiming for the next level of visual quality. But we should also aim for the next level of in-game quality. As I mentioned, physics and simulation can now be achieved in a much more efficient way because we have so much more CPU time at our disposal. We also have more memory, which has countless knock-on effects. And to conclude this presentation, the PSP has a lot to look forward to. Thank you for watching. Does anyone have any questions?
Right, there's one from Water right in chat. Which types of encryption are supported by the Kirk?
So I'm going by memory here, but some SHA encryption is supported. I believe SHA-1 definitely in there. AES and network security is handled by Kirk. And UMD encryption is the only thing Spock handles. Anything else in the encryption side is handled by Kirk on the PSP.
Right, there's one from JB. Can we optimize God of War graphically with these improvements?
So, as a general question, can we optimize existing commercial games? The answer is yes. In theory, we could optimize existing commercial games to look and run better than they did before. But this is a complicated process that would involve decompiling or at least stripping down the game, editing the code, and rearranging the system's resources. So, yes, but with a huge asterisk beside it, because I don't want to get anyone's hopes up.
All right, there's one from Random over here. I've read a lot on the CPU and media engine, but I rarely hear anyone talk about the PSP's GPU. Is that because there's not much known about the GPU?
That is actually a good question. The GPU is pretty well documented, but the reason people focus on the media engine, particularly in the homebrew scene, is because it's simply a more exciting piece of hardware. It's more exciting to think about what the chip could do because we haven't fully explored it yet. The GPU is well documented enough, and we know the limits, roughly speaking, of what to achieve. You can find plenty documentation of this on Hitmen's documentation website. Give that a quick Google, and you should find plenty.
All right, there's another question from Jason here. Is the ME just as powerful as the Allegrex, ignoring the VME?
Yes. So the media engine is functionally identical to the main CPU in almost every regard, which is why it's so exciting, really.
And
Yeah, it's raining like
there's
crazy
a
right
few
now. I
questions
think there's a
asking,
thunderstorm.
basically, how
Resident Evil
realistic
4
it would be
PSP
until we see
confirmed.
homebrew
Oh
games,
my.
utilizing these
Wouldn't
new
that be
optimizers.
lovely? I
I'm
would
glad
go
you asked
crazy.
that, because the Stardust engine
crazy.
will be
Go
taking
stupid.
full advantage of the media engine, or at least full advantage as far as we know of, as in as much as we can achieve at this point in time. So we can do a lot with the media engine right now, and Stardust, the engine, hopes to achieve as much as possible with it. I am hoping to make a game in the Stardust engine that makes full advantage of the media engine, and I'll be getting back to that in a later presentation. But for now, I couldn't give you an exact estimate, but all the foundations are in place. So soon.
Let's see. There's a few questions, but they're kind of off topic and easy to answer for. Well, actually, I'll just read them out.
Sure.
Would disabling / removing the UMD have any effect on performance?
So the UMD is a slightly slower medium than flash storage or our memory sticks or the Go's internal storage. So in theory, you could get slightly improved loading times, or in some games where streaming from disk is a bottleneck, you could see improved performance or reduced stuttering by using flash memory instead of a UMD.
All right. There's a question from me myself.
Okay.
Have there been any recorded? Well, have there been any stock? What do you say? Like bulk buys of empty UMD disks, which could be stamped.
So I haven't done that much research into UMDs as a format themselves, but I believe they're proprietary and out of production now. So I say no, but not definitively.
Right. Okay.
Is that everything, or are there more?
There's more.
Great.
I'm hoping we get that DS emulator next.
Are there any?
So here's what
networking
we got on the
improvements that can
presentation
be
list.
done on the PSP.
Okay, so that's a tough question to answer because earlier, me and a few developers were talking about developing a WPA2 driver for the PSP, which would allow the PSP to recognize and connect to newer networks. Because right now the PSP only supports WEP and WPA.
So what's great about this entire conference, guys, is that I know that we're not really seeing a lot of the PS Vita for all you PS Vita users, but if you do have Adrenaline running at 3.60, 3.65, or anything lower, than 3.73. Anything that you see here in this presentation, all this stuff will work with Adrenaline. And that's just a great thing to see, all this other homebrew stuff to throw it on the PS Vita. So it's not necessarily 100% for the PSP console, but it's great, right? Because a lot of people can't afford the PSP. A lot of us do use the PSP continuously, and it's just it's amazing that this is happening. I can't even believe it. So let's continue to listen to these guys and see.
Yeah, no problem. Would understanding the VME to a further extent help with increasing performance?
Yes. So if we figured out what makes
The mobile
VME
version of
tick,
Resident Evil 4
we
is
could,
possible, but
in
nobody
theory,
tries it, I understand.
reprogram it
Yeah,
as
but
an
I would
FPGA,
want to expect it
which
on
is to say
PSP Vita.
it's a reprogrammable specialized chip.
Yeah, it's going to be tough.
We could see huge improvements in
I would love to see a
specialized
Dreamcast
operations
emulator.
if we were
That
able
would be
to take
great.
advantage of it.
So an FPGA basically just, you can create any kind of hardware you want, basically.
Yeah, I don't want to get into FPGAs themselves, but they're reprogrammable hardware that can be used for specialized tasks. So a lot of stuff to be done there in theory. I see one question here I want to answer myself.
So you got Minecraft, optimization,
sorry.
Spelunky, PSP, and cross-platform development,
I
future
can't find it.
projects.
Can you see anything else?
Here's a question from
Full potential
Tim
of
Dow.
PSP
Real questions.
threading,
What do you think as a
media
reference is
engine.
really possible?
Nazi zombies already
Sorry?
covered, Slender, Stardust, Goldeneye.
What do you think as a reference is possible?
So as I've said, I think we should aspire to achieve levels of visuals that are roughly on par with the Wii, which doesn't sound like a huge jump, but it's definitely ahead of what the PSP could do at its limit.
I agree. That would be great.
Oh, I found the question now. So, what caused other consoles to not use NURBS? So, Sony were just particularly ahead of the curve, if you'll excuse the pun, and they wanted to jump on board NURBS because they thought it was a new type of rendering that could
Sin
be
says, I think the
breakthrough
PSP
in
games
rendering.
cannot go over the limit due to the PSP specs. I think the games were very limited because they were only limited to so much. Like the guy was explaining, they were like running on 32 megabytes, and then they updated it to 64 megabytes, which was good. It's double. And also the CPU speed. Now they're running at 333 megahertz, which is great. And
But it's not quite the same as multi-threading.
so
across
yeah,
two
make
different
sure
cores
guys
on a
to
dual-core
subscribe
CPU
if you're
because we're dealing
interested
with two
in
separate CPUs.
Iridescence
Unfortunately, they're
channel.
identical in most ways,
This is where
so
I'm
it's
watching
not-
his stream,
it's
and
not
I
a
really
huge leap.
appreciate him providing
But
the
we are
stream
sending
link for
instructions
all of us here.
across to a different bar
And
of the
he
PSP,
is
which incurs its own performance.
he is the developer for the Minecraft PSP update versions, and also it looks like he's working on the DS emulator too. And he did do the presentation of Slenderman, which is nice too. And hopefully we'll continue this conference here
So I don't really know how else to answer
with
that
the
question,
DS
but
emulator
there's
next.
a little bit of information.
So we covered the engine, we covered the Daedalus, Minecraft, and
I'll take one
DS
more.
is going to be next.
Alright,
So we have a couple more here,
let's see.
a few more
What, in
presentations.
your opinion, is the biggest bottleneck on the PSP?
So the biggest bottleneck on the PSP in homebrew games is with 9 out of 10 cases.
Thanks
Because the
G1
GPU
Exorcist for
is
subscribing. Thank you so
166
much.
megahertz,
I
and
really appreciate
while we
it.
should never be clock speeds across different
And let's see, Bioshock 1 would have been possible on the Vita. Oh, I don't know about that. Bioshock is pretty large game. That would be crazy port. Crazy game to port over. But yeah, cutting the animations.
Adding VFPU optimization, as in offloading a lot of calculations to the PSP's specialized vector unit, did not result in huge performance.
Dice recortando las animaciones. My Spanish is not that great, pero sí hablo español. A little bit, not too much.
On average, it is between 10 and 40 times faster.
There's a couple of guys that are saying, ¿me puedes dar un video en español? Hay que hacer unos videos en español para que podamos entender más.
Alright. We should be moving on.
So I was
but
like,
I'm
okay,
just
I don't know
seeing
if I
if
can
it's,
do that
like,
because my
too
Spanish
fast,
is a
so-
little broken, a little bit.
It's from Fix. How come it took so
Not
long
too
for
much.
full exploration of PSP
Tried to say something in Spanish, please, Ruffles. Yeah.
It's a good question. I wasn't really around when a lot of the initial exploration was taking place, but I think it's a lot harder to find people who will go through
Well,
the
this week I'm gonna
process
start doing some PSP gameplays, and we're just gonna take a look at different games as we go on, and they're gonna be about like 25 to 30 minutes each, and they're just gonna showcase different games of the PSP, and that way if you guys are interested in getting the game or buying the game or whatever, and you want to get it online or anything like that, then we can definitely take a look at all these different
is CSPSP by Masterman, which will be presented by Motor Legacy this time.
Perfect. We got a new presenter here.
Hello.
Hello, Motor.
So I'm gonna mute my mic.
You have been summoned.
Give me just a second here.
So here we go.
Yeah, I'm really sorry, by the way, about how this presentation has dragged on a bit, because I know for some people in particular, it's getting very late and they want to meet a schedule. So we should probably cut questions a bit short going forward.
No more questions, please. Just keep going with the presentations. This stream is gonna go to like 3 hours. This is.
Thank you to everyone showing some
Here we
interest in the hardware and the theoretical performance side of things, because it's nice to see. It's nice to see end users engaging a bit more with what the PSP can do. Just thought I'd mention that while Motor's warming up. You good there, Moto?
Yeah, I appear to have lost the presentation, and I'm going to have to re-download.
Oh, that's great.
Ah, yes, great.
It's okay, I still have it. Just give me 2 seconds. Sorry, this was
No,
not.
I found it. Don't worry about it.
Cool.
Someone just sent the Amazon link for a 4 GB hard drive for the PSP.
What?
Yeah,
Bruh.
just look in
Okay.
the Discord. You'll see. Send on.
Just answering this one while Motor's warming up. Can you make huge open world PSP games like Zelda for Switch? I would say it's possible as long as you're clever and you know your limits. That's the short answer. It looks like Motor's ready now, so I won't delay anything any longer.
Yep, so I will be talking about CSPSP on behalf of Masterman. We're going into detail about 1.93, 1.94, and the future 1.95 version. So an overview and short history, CSPSP is a homebrew game for PSP, originally based heavily on Valve's popular Counter-Strike game. It's a two-dimensional overhead, top-down shooter that features simple team gameplay and a variety of weapons. CSPSP focuses heavily on multiplayer gameplay and is one of the most popular networked PSP homebrew games. CSPSP was originally developed by Kevin Shen, 2009 through 2011, but in 2011 development was stopped. After Kevin left, the game was developed by Unlocker, 2015 to 2019. Now the game is being updated by Masterman, 2017 through current. 1.93 and 1.94 updates. Both updates were released in 2019. 1.93 features round time, amount of bots, a switchable regeneration, 3 changeable game soundtracks, 2 maps, CZ Italy, waypoint fixes, and etc. 1.94 update features some fixes, reset round settings button, 2 worse maps, many weapon texture changes, change bot signs on round settings, new soundtracks, and etc. Full changelog contained in willowlow.net or in the games folder. The settings in 1.93 and 1.94. For those who didn't see the current settings menu, you can now change the playable soundtrack on a second page. Here are some screenshots of the game. Round settings. This is the most interesting thing he's made for all of the time development CSPSP. Now you can control your round time, bots, bot amount, and regeneration. And the next version, he's going to make more settings to make single player more interesting, to spend more time on it. Texture changes. In 1.94, he wanted to change some weapon textures. This is what he got. Here are some more screenshots. Probable 1.95 to-do list. This was written in willowlow.net, but he'll show you two here. Make T-bots and CT-bot settings in single-player menu instead of max bots. Add 2 additional soundtrack slots. Add buying time setting in the single-player menu. Fix bot buy zone to make CT buy M4A1 AUG, but not AK-47 and SG. Customizable HP per regeneration, 5 HP, 30 HP, 80 HP, etc. Make player left and right rotate sensitivity settings. In-game single-player stats, bot kills, deaths, KD ratio, and favorite weapon. M4A1 and USP silencers. Glockenverlass burst mode. Here are some more screenshots. That is all. Thanks for watching. CSPSP is still being updated. Keep your eyes on. I'm sure he'll be able to answer some questions in the Discord chat.
Right, so it's kind of silent here all the time. Like it's just like, oh yeah, we'll answer questions now, and then a bit of a delay, and there we go. Question from random: can you add a laser sight feature so it is easier to tell where you're aiming?
I believe we should let Masterman answer some of these questions where we might not have the expertise, just so we're...
Yes. I'll just read from chat then. Masterman, do you plan to add new weapons? No. It will cost to make another CSPSP master server. So no new weapons. Can you add a laser sight feature so it is easier to tell where you're aiming? Yes.
That was pretty interesting.
He also says, I can also disable this
Let's
low
go.
health screen. Will CSPSP have a light system? It might have, but I don't know how to do that. The answer. Can we port CSPSP on 3D using the Stardust engine? Though I know about CSDM, CSDoom, 3D on. And his answer is that, oh, the question is not for him. I can't answer that.
You could do it, but that would be your own ambition.
Just an addendum on that point. Someone has already made a recreation of Counter-Strike 1.6 on the Quake engine, so I see no reason why it wouldn't be possible elsewhere.
Someone asked, what is the max sprite limit for weapon sprites? And he says 32 by 32.
I think we should let Masterman take some of these questions himself.
We're just reading over what he replies with for people on YouTube.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
since they can't see it.
Yeah.
So, do we have some background music or something?
I mean, I could get some.
Currently, no, but I can start my soundtrack that I was playing earlier.
I'll go for it. Absolutely.
Actually, no, just go, yeah.
Also, if you didn't know, I basically had the power go off for a second here, so
Irid,
So what I'm waiting
go ahead. I thought someone was talking, but I guess not. Irid, JB suggests putting the Discord chat on
Ah, yes, that's a good idea.
if you're able to.
We're gonna try it. Previously didn't work, but
There's someone asking if it will be PSVR tracking compatible, but
I'm not sure how you're gonna get PSVR on a PSP.
no. Like, I would like to see it, but it's not gonna happen because, like, just no. It would be like a miracle to have that. Alright.
Alrighty.
And someone else says, I want
They're-
to play Super Mario 64 clone in first
taking too much
person
time with these
in
questions.
PSVR. Make that happen. Yeah, I don't think so.
My dumbass was just speaking for 3 minutes and my microphone was off.
Haha. Man, these guys are having a lot of issues with their streams and their communication and all that.
So actually, there is a VR setup thing for the PSP.
Let's go for the DS emulator.
That works.
Yeah, look in the conference chat. And then posted a picture.
So we have a couple more presentations, guys. Optimization, Minecraft for the PSP, DS emulator, and upcoming projects.
Who's next, by the way?
Yeah, sorry to rush you guys. It's Daedalus next. I think we should just keep the conference going rather than wait time to take questions at this point.
Yeah, let's go, guys. Let's move forward.
It's quite late already.
Even
Yes.
I'm running out of time, you know what I mean? So,
Also,
Daedalus,
question, why do I say that the Vita is weak? Because it's only slightly marginally better than the PSP. It's not even equivalent to the PS3, and Sony said it themselves.
yeah,
Oh,
it's 444 megahertz. I mean, even with a few extra cores, you know, what can you do?
With weaker IPC, by the way.
Really?
interesting.
Good. Let me see.
There we go.
Oh, sorry, you're right. PSP Chat is next.
So I'm just going to test the go live button now, see if it crashes or not. Let me open my presentation as well.
While you're working on that, I just want to correct someone who's saying PSP, the Vita can do 500 megahertz. It can overclock to around 490 megahertz, maybe 500, but that's overclocking. Just being clear.
Yes, you're overclocking a system that's already weak and bad anyways.
Yeah.
Just my opinion here.
Yes, you're lying.
No,
That
I-
guy's crazy. He's trashing the Vita, guys. What do you guys think? He says the Vita is
Schedule
weak.
says that before
Wow,
PSP chat.
it's crazy. That's crazy talk.
No, on my schedule it says CS, PSP, then PSP Chat, then Minecraft.
What about threading / the ME? That was on the official.
Did we skip that one?
Yeah.
We skipped that one.
That's why I was about to go live.
Notch is he has his so we'll go with that.
Okay then.
Sorry about the disarray. Go for your thing after that.
Right, so hello everyone, I'm Notch, or however you like to pronounce it. I'm a programmer, PSP developer, game prototyper, science lover, Linux enthusiast, and a privacy freak. I'm here to give you info about PSP Chat and its future. So you can learn more about me in this link, noche-x.github.io. I'm going to first answer some of the questions that I get asked frequently in a presentation or in a slideshow in 5W question style. Like I'm going to answer what's PSP Chat, when is PSP Chat going to release, and so on. Then I'm going to explain some of the technical challenges that I faced along the way. It's not complete yet, but yeah, there are some stuff that I'm facing right now, which I'm going to talk about. I'll answer your questions in the end, so if you have any questions, please note them. Yeah. So first off, anyways, let's get to the questions. First off, what is PSP Chat? PSP Chat is an unofficial Discord client for the PSP. This client is done with network sockets and with the Discord API. PSP Chat is aimed to be decentralized and privacy focused. By that, I mean the system of connecting to the Discord is not dependent on me. It's going to be user driven, and the system shouldn't store any personal info. Uh, you're going to set a username and then just connect, no passwords or anything. It's just like an IRC client. So yeah, it's just going to relay the messages from a Discord bot. So how is this system functioning? The system functions like this. PSP connects to a middleman server, which is hosted by the Discord server. The middleman server hosts a Discord bot which sends the PSP messages to Discord and vice versa, and receiving as well. I'm skipping. Where can I host this middleman server? I'm going to try to make this middleman server as lightweight as possible. So I'm aiming that it will run on a Raspberry Pi Zero. Cheap, small, not so fast. I guess it's usable. Why does PSP Chat need a middleman server? There's no publicly documented Discord connection to the Discord servers, and so I have to do with what's available. There are some APIs that were used in the past, but I tried to replicate all of them, but I failed with bad request errors with HTTP. I thought to send a message or receive a message, I need a user. Like any normal human, you will receive it from the client. You will see it. So it will be not practical for someone to create a user for every server they host or they join. So I thought a bot could do the same thing. I'm not going to host the bot because that will not be decentralized. Every server owner hosts their own clone of the bot. They should create a separate account for the bot because there is a risk of banning. So yeah, secure. They have to set up a quote unquote app on the Discord developer API portal. Then you will insert your token and voila, it will work. When is there going to be a release of PSP Chat, or when is the version 1.0? When the development reaches the first milestone, I'm going to start releasing builds. What is the first milestone? It's version 0.1, the bare minimum. The goals are connection, packets, send, receive, and general functionality. Version 1.0 hopefully will be released in June of this year. So what are the technical challenges that I faced? First, the most important, the connection from a PSP to Discord. As I mentioned earlier, there is no publicly documented Discord connection to the Discord servers. So I had to use the bot API to make a middleman server, which the PSP connects to, and so on. So this bot needs to relay and see the messages. I'm thinking of making a voice chat support, but I'm not sure yet because the library that I'm currently using doesn't have any voice data sending stuff. So yeah. The second challenge that I faced was the connection setup with C++ libraries. Me and Iridescent tried to figure this issue out, but we weren't able to find it. But uh, I ported over my stuff to Stardust engine, and all worked like a charm. Yeah. So if you're interested in the project, take a look at the GitHub page, which you can scan by the QR code. Yeah, I'm going to leave it for a minute so people to, check out. So that's about it for PSP Chat, I guess. If you have any questions, please type it in the conference channel. And today I'm going to release the version 0.1 pre-1 version because I think it's ready. There's no receiving yet, but you can send messages. I have a testing server, which Mr. Ryan, can I send the invite link to the PSP Chat client, or Mr. Ryan?
He might be
Yes.
away. Oh.
I'm back. Literally just back. I was getting a tea, if I'm being honest.
Can I send the PSP Chat testing server link to the PSP Chat client
Yeah.
channel?
Yeah,
Alright.
go ahead.
I'll create a invite people. Never and no limit. So yeah, here it is. You can join, see what are the messages that I did. So take a look at this. So me and Slendix and BC Deshi, I believe I pronounced that wrong. Sorry.
That's how I would pronounce it, don't worry.
Okay. So here it is working like a charm. There is multiple users, PP, GM, GT, multi-threading. Yeah. So
I'm not too excited about the PSP
that's
chat
the test, I
really,
guess. What do you
but
guys
I
want me to
will
write?
have a video for that
And
later.
let me open up
I'm not gonna be
the
too excited
app,
about that, but
actually.
Something about the PSP being cool. I think that would be appropriate.
So in order to connect to Discord, you need to have a VPN wireless router or router that's supposed to be. You can create another channel for the PSP and set a password for ridiculous text, and yeah, not so secure, but yeah, try to.
yeah, the PSP versus the PS Vita. That's a tough one. That's tough.
I wish I could show
I don't necessarily think the Vita sucks.
my PSP.
I think it's a great piece of hardware to have, to own. The PSP also. PSP is the, one of the best handhelds ever. I could argue that,
Right, Vita sucks.
beating Nintendo all day long. Nintendo is just way behind, way behind.
The only logical
It's really hard to write. And enter. Yeah, it's really hard, as you can see here. I changed the keys to cubes like yeah, I just. Why do you think
Bit tired.
it doesn't have media engine? The code processor with the homebrew so that's about it for my presentation. So any questions from YouTube and the conference channel? I just
Yes, there are actually some questions. There is one for W4, that's not a W, Y4F3. And the question is, how is the latency of the chat at this point?
well, I can show you the clients right now. This here. See, if when I press the start button, it will get the request. Watch here. I'm going to highlight it so you can see. And see, normally at all. I just said MIG in order to you to understand.
So practically none at all. No delay.
Well, yeah. So my IP is public right now. This is my public IP. I can change it later on, but when I'm testing it from the LAN, I have to change it to the LAN IP. Yeah. Basically, a little delay, maybe less than a half of a second. So I don't know. There's like no way that I can do it correct because, well, I can't get the PSP input to the computer and yeah, record there and blah blah blah. And if I do it from a stopwatch, there's a human error always. So
Oh, that's
yeah.
fine. No, not any significant delay. Like it doesn't really, have any impact. Right. There's another question. Is this allowed by Discord? Is it not against the terms of service?
I checked the legal documentation or the legal papers, but there's no mention of custom clients or any word. But yeah, it's probably bannable because Discord client as well that connected to the Discord service with HTTP requests. I tried to replicate it, but I failed um, by actually copying the request itself from the Discord client in the desktop. So yeah, they probably did some trickery to block requests from you know, uh, unknown requests or something. So yeah, it's probably bannable, but you're entering a username that could be anything. You are not banned. You could not be banned. Um, the server owner could be banned, and by to bypass that, you could create create a bot from there. There's no delay to create an app or anything, so yeah, it will be safe, I guess.
All right. Random just put a ton of questions. By Masterman. First of which is, would it look like the original Discord, the normal Discord?
Um, version 0.3, I guess. It will start to look like Discord. Um, when Iridescent finishes the UI stuff with Stardust, and when I finish with the networking stuff, um, it will start to look like Discord.
Okay. The second question is, are you planning to make it compatible with the PSP camera?
I got that question, but yeah, let me answer it again. It was from me earlier. Yeah. PSP camera, I'm not going to support it, I think, because it would be slow. And as I said, there's no way. The library that I'm using has no, you know, recording or DM calls, so you wouldn't able to use the camera there. So probably not. Definitely not. 90%. No.
Okay, so then you also wouldn't have any voice chat functionality.
I'm thinking of voice chat when I get a PSP headset. I will try to mess around with the audio stuff, but I don't know how that works. But I want to do it. But that will be a later on edition because yeah, I don't have a headset or I don't have experience with the audio recording stuff.
Okay. What is the way you input text? Is it using the built-in?
Built-in on-screen keyboard.
Okay.
I want to change that to a faster typing style, but I saw a Lua keyboard that I can probably implement to PSP Chat, which is really fast to type in, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Can I
cool.
gauge
asks, can you gift your e-girl Nitro over PSP Chat?
Ooh, that's a really tough one.
I don't think so.
As long as you have the code, you can send it from the DMs, right? Yeah. There's no DM functionality yet, and I will try to do it, but I think that would be bad, and I think that that would be not be possible. I think so. Yeah, you could send it, but someone else could snatch that code as well. So sorry.
Right. There's another question. Will you have support for languages like Japanese, Chinese, Korean, Arabic, stuff like that?
Definitely.
Okay. Right. There was a question about if it will have its own Discord channel, but it does.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Guys, I hate to hurry you up a bit. We've spent a lot of time on questions. I don't know, for a lot of people, it's getting quite late. So
Yeah.
Yeah, it's getting late for me as well, but yeah, try to rush through them. I'll keep it short.
I don't see. There's people asking about is there a chance
Too many
of PSP
questions. We gotta
breaking,
move forward
just-
here.
just in general.
That
Let's
doesn't
see.
seem probable.
No, it's very unlikely, if possible at all.
Yeah, there's no way to. How do you even break a PSP? I don't know.
That basically seems to be everything.
Forward here.
From YouTube and Discord channels.
Yeah, I don't see anything.
Just gonna
in YouTube
organize my
either.
PSPs here.
Okay, so if there's any questions, I will answer it on the PSP Chat client channel, and from tomorrow, I guess. So yeah, that's it for me. And thanks for listening. I was watching.
Okay, I guess I'm streaming.
yeah, it's
Should
mine.
we hurry up on the questions for like the upcoming presentations? Like just a bit more.
Yeah, take like 5 or 10 or less. Probably 5.
I kind of want to answer.
Five.
Get all answered.
Yeah, answer
Yeah.
the rest of the next chat.
Sure, that's probably easier. Okay, ready?
Yep. It's a limited edition.
Fine. Okay, so my presentation here is on the importance of threading and the media engine.
Mic muted.
So first off, I'm going to talk about sort of the hardware perspective. The PSP is basically using a single core MIPS R4000 processor. As such, most programs are designed to be single threaded due to the fact, obviously, that it's a single core processor. However, this doesn't really work for all programs, especially networking programs that need to have multiple threads to handle I/O at any time. Networked applications, especially, need to be asynchronous. And asynchronous design is becoming somewhat of a modern trend in sort of program design. So the reason to use threads. They can greatly balance games and make them a lot more performant than you normally would get just by running everything on the single CPU. Most games are actually going to be using way less than 16 milliseconds per VBlank, so stop wasting this extra time. So in the way that you draw to the PSP screen, usually most engines have a at the end of the frame, they basically just wait and pause, and you waste all that extra time if you're not taking advantage of threads. So efficiency and performance can be significantly enhanced by using the threading API for using jobs and things like that. And the SCE kernel, the PSP kernel, has a very good control structure for doing stuff like threads. Looking at it from the software perspective, it's pretty easy. PSP threads can be created with kernel create thread. Obviously, there's data inside there, like the thread name and the thread function. They can be started with start thread, deleted with delete thread. There's also terminate with terminate thread, obviously. And PSP threading control can be manually invoked by using a C kernel delay thread, which is something that is great if you have loops in a thread, and you can use it to actually force one thread to yield to another. So if I have two threads that are defined, and one is going through a loop, and then it eventually it's gonna take up all the time. If it's like, for example, an infinite loop, take something like Minecraft PSP, that's always going to be running in an infinite loop. We're going to use SE kernel delay thread to basically force execution to go to other sorts of venues. Sometimes, though, this can introduce timing issues, so you really have to be careful with your data access, as with any sort of thread program, maybe using mutexes, things like that, alongside preventing race conditions and stuff like that. So let's talk a little bit more about sort of the media engine. The media engine is really a secondary PSP processor that the PSP has in order to be able to do things with. It's a functionally equivalent to the main CPU. It doesn't have a VFPU, so that's the only real difference there between the two. It has a few specific issues with access and cache. For example, it cannot access the sort of what's it called, VRAM, mainly because VRAM is directly on the same chip, the same EDRAM chip, so it can't necessarily access that. There's also a few things where if you don't clear the data cache, it's not going to write to memory. Otherwise, it is a very significant performance speedup, however. So let's cover a little bit more about it. So in order to use the ME, what's there is that the media engine's driver is basically best obtained from Daedalus, because Daedalus obtained it from ME Booter, which is like the Sony implementation of it, and it's really useful to use that ME driver. The media engine can accept some specific jobs from static functions, and the media engine cares about cache usage and requires either uncached data or pointers to that sort of data. Otherwise, it can't really read the data correctly. For example, if I have a global variable in my program, it's not going to be able to just know exactly what that is. The media engine also has a distinct lack of SE kernel functions alongside others, and especially the standard library can be sometimes hit or miss in all of the availability on the ME. This means that the ME is sort of best done for things that are more data intense or more data and computation intensive, rather than doing general purpose things. So here's what ME usage can do. So the media engine is used extensively by Daedalus 64 and Minecraft for the PSP. Since I am the developer of Minecraft for the PSP, let's talk about some of the performance. Before using the ME at all, chunk loading would cause drawdowns of over 80%, with FPS consistently under 7. Partial ME usage keeps it somewhere about above 15, except for a few cases, and full ME usage, as is still being worked on, is projected to now result in a flawless 60 FPS. So, looking into the future, the media engine's performance benefits can give applications approximately 50 to 90% extra performance relative to the initial CPU. Alongside that, applications that were thought impossible should definitely be reassessed if they were not possible due to the computing needs, or if applications could take advantage of the ME to gain speed boosts and stuff like that. The constraint now is, for the most part, on the actual GPU of the PSP, because there isn't too much that can really be extended with that. There's only so much that you can do in terms of using the GPU properly. For example, one of the things I thought that the media engine could be used for would be something like a simulation game, or something that needs a lot of pre-calculations. If someone can make an ME driver that would be really easy to implement, then it could be significantly easier to add in, as right now you're basically ripping it from Daedalus and then like readapting it to whatever you need it for. So I'm going to be taking a few questions here.
Right. Just be waiting for the questions to roll. Sure. Ah. When did the N64 emulator
There we
start
go.
using? Yeah, I'm not sure if that's related to the current presentation, but
I'd say it's tangentially related. I think it started around 2008 to 2010, that kind of era. And at the time, or at least around 2010, 2012, there were even plans to move the main dynamic recompiler over to the media engine and do a lot of the other stuff on the main CPU instead, so they could have better overall organization. But that plan just fell through. So Daedalus have been using the media engine for quite a while now.
all right. And there was a related question a bit earlier, but there's a question from Jason here about how syncing is currently done between two processors. Could you give a just a rough overview about how that's?
So current. Okay, that I didn't time out. Okay, so currently, what's being done for synchronization is that basically the ME driver provided by Daedalus already has MEI, which is the media information engine information structure, which tells you whether or not the media engine has completed a certain task. So that's really the synchronization part that we have. And if not being synchronized currently in MCPSP, it's just going to yield to the main thread using the threading model as I stated earlier.
All right. There's another question from Kraz, which is, well, what else could the media engine be used to run?
I mean, it's arbitrary. You can write anything for it if you really wanted to. Yeah, there are some limitations with the data access that you can do and stuff like that, but for the most part, what do you want to put on it is the question.
Right. Let's see. One from Paul Pollington. Why do you think the Turok on I'm sorry, I can't pronounce this. On the N64 emulator ran so fast using async audio?
It's async audio. Like I said before, it's more efficient usage of resources. I'm not the person to ask about Daedalus, if we're all going to be honest here.
Yeah, I'm sorry. People are just like, oh yes, should be here. But
Well, I'll say whatever I can. Turok is a weird game because it uses very aggressive fog to reduce the draw distance. So since there's so little going on screen a lot of the time, the fact that a lot of the processing is now being done on the media engine means the game just runs really well.
there's a question from pre-release Gelber, questioning if the ME is used for release games, but
no, it does not.
Not in the way that we're using it.
The only thing that the previous thing was, it was used in the PlayStation 1 emulator, I think. That was the only usage of it. And I believe ME Booter, as Random just asked, is one of the PRX files that is referenced by the PS1 emulator.
Yeah. How many more questions are we on now?
I have a question myself. When are you going to do encryption with Spark, I guess, with
Kirk?
on Stardust?
On Stardust, encryption with Kirk.
Is there any encryption right now? I don't think so.
There's not a planned thing for that yet, no.
Two more? Is that all right? Yes, now we'll just go with it.
Yeah, it sounds fine to me. Sorry, I was answering your question.
So, would any of you pick up previous emulator projects to implement the ME
Hey everyone.
for better performance?
I would say that is something that we're gonna
Hi,
talk
Hilso.
about
Thank you
shortly.
for watching, for being here, for everyone who's sticking around. This is a very long conference, and I'm
So
ready to
that's
go now.
something that we're going to be talking about rather shortly.
Alright. And then there's a question from Random. Could you explain what the e-booter is? I didn't see the present.
Yeah, I already answered this question.
Oh, I'm sorry, did I miss that?
I just said at the end of talking about it, I just killed two questions with one stone, but I said ME Booter was likely referenced from the PS1 emulator.
Oh, right. Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, one more, I guess. Does anyone, well, is there something known about how games like Gran Turismo achieve such great performance even without using video stuff?
Hey Robles, do I need to
I
have the
believe,
SD2 Vita to install Adrenaline
Turismo
on my
games
Vita?
that will use,
You
graphical
don't
tricks
really
to
need
get,
it, Skeleton Man.
to the same sort of
The only reason why you would want SD2 Vita is just for maximum storage for your Vita, and just to add all your files and stuff. It's really recommended for you to do that first. That way you have enough space for all the games and all the different things you want to install, and you're not running into the issue of, hey, I run out of room, or I ran out of storage, what do I do next? And then you update it to the SD2 Vita later on, and then you're going to have to move everything to the card. So you might as well just do the Vita adapter right away. And then from there, you can just add all your games while you're going, and you don't have to go through the pain of like moving all the different homebrew and all your different games and emulators onto the SD2 Vita, because it's quite a task when you're messing around with all those different files.
Okay, here we go. Let's have 1 second here to make sure that stream catches up.
So
Looks
we
to be
got
so.
one more presentation here. I'm gonna do one more presentation,
Whose
guys, and I'm
mic is
gonna
that?
head out because I gotta go eat dinner, and I want to work on some videos here for tomorrow.
That's Master Men.
Okay. I didn't mute him, but
No, it's gone now, so it should be fine.
okay. So let's talk about Minecraft for the PSP, the story of ambition. So the origins. So basically what I wanted to do was a simple graphics mod for Wulio's Minecraft PSP version 2.0. I ended up working on some basic shaders there with waving grass, leaves, water, and more. This was really just a vertex shader, and it was pretty simple to implement, and it ended up looking pretty good. I also ended up optimizing Wulio's version 2.0 and ended up saving 12 to 16 megabytes of RAM through some engine changes that allowed us to basically take away textures that weren't being used. It really wasn't meant to be much, but I wanted to do a few more things and just kept looking at the engine. So the new goal? Well, I understood how 3D Infinite World voxel games worked and generated chunks and terrain. I previously have worked on Minecraft 1 Week Challenge and was exposed to a lot of the data code. What I did there was that I did basically a full post-processing system for it, which was a pretty cool sort of addition to that game. And then I have a good understanding of 3D graphics in both OpenGL, and PSP uses basically the equivalent of OpenGL, like 1.3 or so. So I did that instead. So, what could go wrong here? So, let's go and see exactly what went wrong here. So, let's look at this image. Do you guys see anything wrong? It's a little bit repetitive, but there's nothing really that wrong, right? No? You haven't seen it yet? Look closer. Yeah, 24,377 lines of code in one file, and there's like 20 files with this same amount of code in it. So let's look at some of the problems more specifically aside from that. So aside from that, everything was basically being pre-generated before before the world sort of loaded in, which isn't really very optimal, especially if you're trying to make infinite worlds and things like that. Chunks weren't really loading in real time. They would just build the mesh for said chunks, but that was a lot simpler of a process than really just completely making a brand new chunk in real time. Everything currently was really disorganized, especially considering that everyone just kept adding on to already long files of source code, which made it even worse. And there's still a lot of potential upside. So a good program really needed a good base, and that's what I really set out to do. So, how did I become a bit more ambitious with my goals? So in addition to adding infinite terrain, I wanted a full survival mode implementation, cross-platform multiplayer, full Minecraft version 1.12.2, mods and API shaders, and a lot more that I still want to do. So what ended up happening? Version 0.3 development was pretty slow and took forever due to the fact that there's a lot of personal circumstances, work, and a lot of things that made it really hard to just consistently work on version 0.3. A lot of directional things there too. Version 0.4 was a lot different though, and everything really fell into place within a month. Version 0.5 is basically within the next 10 to 12 weeks, and it's going to be a very huge update. So what's been added so far? Version 0.3 was a from-the-ground-up rewrite of the entire project. It includes a full Minecraft 1.12.2 menu, give or take. Some things aren't 100% accurate, but do you really care that much? It's also created infinite super flat worlds with building capabilities. And version 0.4 continued to add this and added terrain and blocks. It added 300 plus placeable blocks with some custom models in there too. It also added a fully fleshed biome cave and added structures, flora, trees, and a lot more to the world generation as well. Version 0.5 so far has added physics and game modes and is still scheduled to do a lot more. So version 0.5's current progress. As of currently, I am working on explicitly rewriting a lot of version 0.5 pre-2 code to optimize and fix the game. Version 0.5 has 12 scheduled pre-releases. After version 0.5 pre-release 2, everything will be pretty fast-paced development up until version 0.5 pre-6. Pre-6 is basically fleshing out the terrain, adding in stuff like more biomes, differentiation, and a lot more things like that, fixing some algorithms in there as well. And from there, version 0.5 is really focusing the majority of survival features. So let's look at a glimpse of what will really be added. The remainder of blocks, items, custom models, and a lot more. Basically full creative mode, inventory, and a HUD. Basically survival mode basics, crafting, smelting, advancements, and other subsystems like that. Lighting, mob spawning, animations, and AI. Combat, which is going to be kind of a hybrid between 1.8 and 1.9 style. It's going to feature, well, obviously bows, but dual wielding and shields, but the sword mechanics are still similar to version 1.8. It also adds TNT. Then we're also going to add tool durability, chests, interaction blocks, fishing and loot tables, and a lot more into the game, alongside on-tick events such as block physics, crops, and we're also going to be doing stuff like tameable animals and horses and stuff like that, alongside, like, you know, growing animals and stuff like that. And there's likely going to be a lot more added because this obviously isn't a full list. So looking at the future between version 0.5 and version 1.0, redstone, enchanting, miscellaneous features, and other stuff like that will be added in version 0.6. Another and dimensioning support will be supported in version 0.7. Additional sort of structures, miscellaneous things, and more optimizations will be added in version 0.8. And version 0.9 will add potions, brewing, and preparations for basically the end. Version 1.0 aims to be version 1.12.2 equivalent, so it's going to have parity, and it's going to add the end, wither, end cities, and a lot more. After version 1.0, there will be some pre-releases and more updates, obviously. So, glimpsing ahead into the far future, basically we're going to be looking at Minecraft 1.14 parity, which is version 1.1, 1.16 with 1.2. We're going to be aiming for multiplayer with both Java and potentially Bedrock, and also potentially ad hoc for version 1.3, alongside mods, API, and custom client stuff like shaders in version 1.4. And then past this is going to be a lot more of continued support updates. So let's take some questions now, because I just outlined the most ambitious plans ever.
Oh well, people immediately start typing. So it shouldn't be
Immediately.
too long.
So the stream has been going for about 3.5
yes, right.
hours,
From
and
pre-release
looks like they're going to be answering
this is
questions
not about
for the remainder.
Minecraft PSP only. It's also about Goldeneye and other games that are being worked on. Will they aim to be for Minecraft be a direct port, or will it be like modified to better fit on the PSP? I guess.
I'm not even sure if a direct port would necessarily even be possible. It has to be modified.
Yes, but I mean more like, will it aim to incorporate, like, be as close to the original as possible in terms of features and
Yes.
stuff like that?
Yes.
And for GoldenEye, what was it? Mr. Iron,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Could you say something about that? Would that be aiming to be a direct port, sorta?
Honestly, yeah, more or less a direct port. As I mentioned, there are one or two extras like breakables, but it's trying to be authentic more than anything else.
All right.
Could this potentially be a better way to play the game in PPSSPP, considering it might be less intense than Java? I mean, I guess so, it would be.
That would actually be,
That's actually kind of crazy to think about, but that is a good point. From progress so far, aside from external factors, how difficult or easy is it to stick to the progress schedule? I pretty much stuck with the schedule aside from stuff like basically getting sick and stuff like that. I mean, you can't really control that, and that's an external factor, as you said. But otherwise, if like life was perfect, then yes, I could probably just stick to this schedule. The schedule is... yeah, the schedule has been consistently pretty accurate. I know that we're probably a week or so behind the original one, but that doesn't quite mesh up anymore because version 0.5 is being basically re-looked at, basically.
All right, there's a question from Ultra Pixel P. What are some of the more intense hurdles you faced working on this?
Chunk generation. Obviously, that's the biggest issue, and that's actually what I'm still working on right now with some of the optimizations here and putting it onto the media engine, because the process in general is just very expensive on your PSP. Past that, I don't really have as much concerns with that because there isn't too many things that can be that laggy in the game. Considering TNT, yes, that's going to be one of the ones that it's a little bit more laggy, but aside from that, that's not really a problem, I guess. Most of the other features are a lot simpler to import/add, if that makes sense.
Yes. So, judging from how progress has been so far, how long would you say it takes to get to, like a basic playable state, like with survival mechanics?
I mean, that's literally what's going to be added, basically version 0.5 pre-5. So after pre-2 finishes up in this next coming week, version 0.5 pre-5 is only about 3 weeks out of that. So it's only going to be... It's not even going to be that far out. It's going to be within basically the next month that it's going to be ready.
All right. Just two quick ones. Do you work with a team?
No, it's one person.
All right. Question from Fix. Any fears of the cease and desist from Microsoft?
Probably not, because basically most of the stuff that I'm doing does not distribute the actual source code. It doesn't distribute any of Minecraft's internal code, nor does it distribute their assets. Or if it does it as little as possible. Not to mention that Microsoft wouldn't have much interest in it, but if that were the case.
All right. Do you think you would be making a I guess there's a question basically. Do you think you can open the PSP for newer developers, basically?
That's the entire idea of Stardust Engine.
Yes, exactly. So will there be, like, for example, like example code with the Minecraft project? For example, for like people who want to see something in action, look at pieces of example code from the Minecraft project.
I mean, if they wanted to look at that, they can go visit the GitHub, but I wouldn't really say that it would be using Minecraft PSP's code, especially in the context of Stardust Engine.
All right. So, okay, I think those are enough questions for now. I mean, looking at the time, I don't want to be the one.
I'll take one last one, and that one was that, can mods be ported without relative ease? No, they cannot, because Java is not the same as C++, obviously.
All right.
So the next presentation, I believe we're done here, are we?
Yes, so.
Okay, so the next presentation is Desmume, which is Iridescent and I. So give me 2 seconds, I'll pull up Desmume. Feel free to answer any other questions while I take 2 seconds to open this up, by the way. Okay, sorry about the delay here. My computer is 9 years old, or this laptop is 9 years old, so just taking a second because I didn't have this prepared as I should have.
Shame.
Yeah, that's completely on me.
Yeah, because I don't believe I have a copy of it. I think you're the one who has the copy of it because we worked online.
Yeah, so probably my fault again. Sorry, hold on. Okay, have it here. And I'm live.
I'm really waiting for the DS emulator presentation, and then after that, I'm gonna head out, guys.
Help. There we go, it's finally loaded.
Jeez.
Okay.
Is that gonna still lagging to go full screen? Oh, we are in.
Yay.
It's not my laptop's day. Okay. So this is a presentation of Desmume PSP, which is a DS emulator for the PSP, and Iridescence and I will be presenting.
Indeed.
So take it away.
So currently this is an overview. So Desmume is a PC emulator for the DS. It runs most of the games for the DS with some reasonable performance numbers, and the PSP does not currently have a fully optimized DS emulator. DS emulation on the PSP would definitely be a huge achievement, and the PSP has the hardware capability with roughly 7.5 times the power of the DS, excluding the GPU, by the way. Currently there's a very unoptimized port of Desmume to the PSP. So that's sort of our starting platform.
Yep. In terms of Desmume's current state, it boots some DS games. Recently we've been testing the Pokemons, they all work. And a few of the other games we tested, they all boot, to my knowledge. 3D rendering is disabled because at this point in development, it is a joke, but it does work. That's definitely coming down the line.
Yes.
It uses an interpreter, so it doesn't have a dynamic recompiler or a just-in-time compiler, a JIT. This might be a bit of an issue because obviously ARM to MIPS is not a very popular choice of platform conversion, but we have Exophase's blessing to use his ARM to MIPS JIT from GPSP. So hopefully we'll be able to implement that down the line. It's built on Desmume version 0.9.11, which is the latest stable build. And in its current state, Desmume has no hardware acceleration or use of the media engine. It's all on the main CPU, and I'm sure Iridescent would love to tell you about how badly optimized this is.
Okay, yes, definitely. So currently, it requires a lot of hardware acceleration. It's currently using SDL bindings, which are rather slow, which seem to be doing pixel by pixel operations, which is not useful. 3D graphics are done on the ARM9 chip itself rather than a dedicated GPU, and in the interpreter slash the JIT. Basically, we could potentially just extract this code and force it to run the PSP's GPU, which would greatly improve performance, and half of these jobs could actually just be exported to the media engine in order to do that. Currently, I've done a few little tests here with the GPU and stuff like that. I fixed a few issues, but currently, the way that it's working is that it's literally writing pixel by pixel by pixel straight onto the onto an area of memory before basically rendering that, which is extremely inefficient and is most likely the reason why it's running so slow. I'd be able to wager about 75% of the slowdown is because the GPU is running on the CPU. Another sort of thing that we need to do is create a new cross compiler. We could possibly use GPSP's ARMS to MIP just-in-time compiler, even though that just-in-time compiler is made for ARM7. ARM9 is still fundamentally similar and is basically an extension of the architecture, so with a few little things, we could definitely just run directly there. We could also do it in a self-rolled fashion as well. We could just write our own, but it's very likely that we'll just use the GPSP's compiler. We could try to also do something with static compilation if you want to have the best performance, or dynamic recompilation if you're going to have it all in real time. The media engine currently doesn't really have a defined role, and it's really not quite sure what we could do, because it could do either of the CPU's jobs. And currently, just with a little bit more performance numbers, based on tests so far that I've done, it needs to be about 130 times faster in order to run at 60 FPS.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. And as you said, so much of that comes from just the GPU. So the solution to this, as I proposed, this is the smartest idea I've ever had and ever will have, which says nothing. But the problem is that mapping the PSP CPUs, mapping the different DS CPUs to different PSP CPUs presents some issues. So the media engine has no SCE kernel functions. So for tasks like communication, the media engine can't do these kind of things itself. We would have to execute this on the main CPU. And the ARM7 chip does a lot of these kind of tasks on the original DS. So it'd be complicated to try and arrange that and work around that problem. Writing new drivers is virtually out of the question. So in terms of the main CPU and the media engine's overhead, the main CPU will constantly be under more pressure as the ARM9 chip is more demanding and doing more at any given time, while the media engine will have plenty of overhead. It's poor system balancing, and it's not a good way to emulate the system. So the solution is to have an indiscriminate job manager. Send jobs to whichever CPU has the most overhead. So if, for instance, the media engine has a particular amount of overhead and the main CPU has less overhead, the media engine will take precedence and it will take the operation because it just has more time, and it will avoid bottlenecks much better than assigning fixed CPU roles. If a job requires kernel functions, the job manager is overridden and the job is automatically performed on the main CPU. It allows performance to be as efficient as possible at any given time. So
This
I don't
dude
think there's
coughing
much else
made
to
me
say about
feel
that.
like I just got
It's
the damn
important
virus.
to keep
Just kidding.
performance at the absolute maximum level when we're doing something like DS on PSP, and this is just the best way to go about it in my.
So looking ahead at our sort of future plans and the future releases, sorry, development is expected to begin in early to mid-summer, and we're going to be using a profile, which I've already kind of done, to see what takes up the most time, at least in CPU terms, and then we're going to try to optimize and hardware accelerate STL to maybe our own custom library, maybe Stardust engine, it depends. Currently, we're pretty much going to be looking at putting some of the 2D stuff onto the GPU before creating a ME manager for a lot more performance. After this, we could do some stuff including 3D support using just the hardware itself and creating a dynamic recompiler. After this, we're going to be polishing the UI and other features and potentially even doing VFPU optimizations before the full release.
Yeah. I think that's everything we have to say. So does anyone have any questions? I'm sure there are plenty, believe me.
Oh yes, already. From Random, how will you implement touch controls?
I think that's on you, Iridescent.
I think we were...
Are you okay?
No, I've just had 3 presentations in a row. So basically, using the analog stick.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this. I'll save your voice a bit. We were talking about this, and the analog stick is the only real way we're going to have a cursor. We're still not really sure about how we'll implement touching the screen as an actual, as a button press, if you will, because we might or might not have enough buttons. But we'll see what we can do to work around that.
All right, there's another question. Will it be possible to change the screen position and size during game emulation?
I'll answer this one. Yeah, your
I
voice needs to
don't
go
think so.
anyway. I don't think so, but I think I think scaling is something that's not going to be very difficult to do. So maybe. I don't want to rule it out.
It could be done, it's just not really practical. I mean, you could switch the top and bottom screens from left and right to be, because currently it has to run side by side, so you could do the top screen on the left and the bottom screen on the right is usually what I see, but I guess you could flip that. There's no real performance.
So that is it for this stream, guys. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it. I gotta go. I just spent like 3.5 hours just listening and just kind of getting myself organized here with all this PSP stuff. But I do have a lot of videos for you coming this week regarding the PSP homebrew and all sorts of fun stuff to add. So please stay tuned. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe. Thank you everyone for being here, for being part of the stream, for saying hi for a few seconds or whatever. But yeah, that is it for this one. I gotta go eat now. I have a headache and I'm hungry and I want to hang out with my wife and my kids, so that is what I'm gonna do for now, and I will end the stream. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you guys. As always, take care, be safe out there, stay clean, and I'll see you guys on the next one.